Zoom out a little bit.
So it's not a Monday, it's a Thursday, but nonetheless, we are here. Sorry about the delay. We will have people coming in a little bit late, but hey, that's the beauty about doing the around the table streams is there's no formality to this. There is zero rhyme or reason. There is just us talking football, having a great time. Right now, we got Jake Merrill on the panel. Jake, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. It's great to be back and talking ball. I mean, I'm excited to jump back in. I mean, it's been a minute. Obviously, we've been a little slower about jumping in and doing different stuff, but it's nice to always collaborate, come back together, and get stuff done. Once, twice, 3 times a week. I mean, it's just nice to talk ball. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
I love it,
Absolutely.
man.
Brandon Wilkins with the 4.99 already saying, Ty, let's get it going. Roll Tide roll. Thank you very much for that, Brandon. And thank you very much for 5 Adams, Kenny Hall, Spark Plug. We got some boomers in the chat. We got a Roll Tide roll, and we got another Roll Tide roll. So we're evenly distributed right now. Let me know in the chat where y'all are from. Travelpreneur in here, dropping the elephant, so you already know. Boomer129, Jake. This is the man, the myth, the legend that commented on that stash last time. And I'm going to tell you what. Boomer129, his whole objective is to make you laugh, and without fail, he gets
Oh,
me every single time. We got Duh Dundies in here dropping a boomer. Let me know who y'all are repping in this chat. Listen, we're going to have a lot of fun today. Like I
hmm
said earlier, we are expecting some people. Prime time, my man. Haven't seen you in a while. Saying Boomer from Miami. Hope you're doing well, Prime. It's been far too long, and that's really on me. My content has been all over the place right now, but what are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do? We're here. Better late than never, but never late is better.
that's
Figured
right.
I'd give Drake a slight win because he's going through a lot right now. So I figured I'd drop that Yankees cap, dude. The Yankees cap is over there, my man. The Yankees cap is over there. We got the new Colorado hat right here.
Looks good, dude.
So we got to wear this. Thomas in here, thank you for being in here. A Watt saying Oklahoma City right now, but roll tide. A Watt, hopefully the weather is up there. Weather up there is good.
hmm
I know my wife and I missed a lot of it going to Colorado. North Texas got battered.
Yeah.
Brandon saying, watch y'all's video from the other day. I drive a truck for a living, make my miles go faster, putting y'all on the radio. I'm not the best on YouTube, Brandon, but I certainly appreciate that. I'm still learning. It makes it really easy when we have these panels, right?
Yeah.
Like you get a lot of great content creators in here. I really appreciate that though, Brandon, but there are so many great content creators on this platform, man. I'm just blessed to be a small part of the massive cogwheel of college football content creators and blessed to have an amazing community. Right. Like I think that's one of the things I always say, Jake, and Jake, you and I have talked about this before we dive into this.
hmm
Um, I'm just blessed to have a community. I feel like channels are nothing without their communities, and the
Yeah.
community is a reflection of the channel. And I would put my community up with any on the platform, not college football. I mean, the entirety of the platform of YouTube. I think this is the best panel. I have a wife, Thomas, so I'm flattered, but I have a wife.
Oh man, that's funny. No, I mean that's a good point. Like in the end of the day, it's awesome to, for me too. Like I'm newer, right? Like I've only been doing this a few months, jumping on with you, Ty, where we used to jump in and do different things, and over at Bama Football on YouTube, and now we're, all jumping in, having new platforms and meeting new people. So it's fun for me to get in here, jumping with you. And I mean, I love doing the videos, but I also love doing these lives because then we get to interact, obviously, with you guys. No, you guys in the chat, and it's a lot of fun, and we have a blast. So it's nice to jump in here and interact. And I mean, there's also a lot going on. There's so much going on out even without football season
Oh man.
being present. I mean, between visits, between just the recruiting, obviously with the NIL stuff's been absolutely insane. So I mean, there's just so much to dive into.
Yeah, 100%. And listen, we got a lot of OU fans in here. We got a lot of Lynn in the chat. Lynn, happy you're in here, my man. Stop in to check you guys out. Hope all is well. Hope you're having a good evening. We have Coach Jay on the way home right now. Coach Sean should be making an appearance. can you sit? I might have sent Coach Sean's to the wrong email address, and that would be par of the course for me, right? Like, let's be honest. That absolutely sounds like something I would do. So I'm going to send this to Coach Sean,
Yeah, no,
and
you
we're good
got
to
it.
go.
I like it, man. It's
So
good.
yeah, the Dundies beat me to it, Jake.
I know.
Since we have a lot of SEC fans in here, we got a lot of
Hmm.
Oklahoma fans in here, we got
Hmm.
some Bama fans in here, we got some Texas fans in here. Listen, y'all can fight in the chat about what the best rivalry in college football is. I've let it be known. I think the Iron Bowl and the Red River rivalry are the two best rivalries in college football. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, that's it's funny because I got tagged the other day. Jason hit me up, Jason Watkins. Yeah, I'll check his channel out too. Hall of Fame College Football with Jason the coach. Great channel over there. But he hit me up the other day and tagged me in this release when CDC, the athletic director over at Texas, was like, "Hey, man, this game is the best game. Like it rivals it all." And it is a great game. I said, I'll have to go see that atmosphere to see just how good it is. I think it's interesting because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only game that really there's been like a 30 for 30 on is the Iron Bowl. Am I correct? Did they do one on the Red River
Hmm.
Shootout?
I'm not sure. I haven't been like super well versed in the
Yeah.
Red River shootouts.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know if they've done like the history of it and like how impactful it's been. And I mean, it is a very impactful game.
Yeah, it is.
Obviously, now like with with both teams being in the SEC, it becomes way more relevant, like important. I think from like just the history of Texas and Oklahoma in general and just that battle. And I will say, like, every year, doesn't matter how the teams are ranked, it's a fun game to watch. I mean, even as a kid growing up and looking at those schools through recruiting, I that was a long time ago. I paid a lot of attention to that game. I loved it, but I do think it's hard to argue. I mean, what are we arguing, right? Is it the atmosphere we're comparing? The atmospheres? Are we comparing like the importance? You know what I mean?
So
Like that's the hard part.
that's a great way to say this, right?
Hmm.
Let's break it down multifaceted. Because if we're
Hmm.
talking atmosphere, I mean, yes, there's the actual atmosphere in the stadium, but then you have the entire state fair outside.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like, you just have this incredible
Hmm.
atmosphere in and around the stadium, right?
Yeah.
And that's fair. But what if we're talking big moments? And this
I
isn't to
know.
reduce any of the moments in the Red River rivalry, but let's think about some of these moments in the Iron Bowl. You have the comeback.
Hmm.
Alabama fans, close your ears real fast. You have the comeback. Jake, I remember exactly where I was during the comeback. Alabama whooping Auburn,
Yeah.
absolutely whooping them, taking it to them in the first half. And then Cam Newton in that second half put it on Bama,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
That one right there, that's an incredible moment to me. You have the kick
Incredible.
six. You
Hmm.
have the Bryce Young 1 minute and 3 seconds left on the with 95 yards to go, looks over at Nick Saban, smiles and gives him a thumbs up, drives the length of the field, Alabama wins. You have the 4th and 31. And I mean, these are all just within the past decade,
Yeah.
right? Like what are we? The Superman interception? Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt about it, Boomer. It's that's what makes these two rivalries so interesting to me, and why I have to say I know that there's the big game, right? The
Hmm.
Ohio State Michigan.
Oh, a
I
lot of
don't
people call
think
that the
it
game.
compares.
I
I don't think it compares to either of these.
I mean, it's a good point. Again, we get back to like what was the importance. I feel like it's interesting with the Ohio State and Michigan game that the game, whatever anyone calls it, I don't even know if it has like a real name except like the game. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if that's another thing too, is it's not branded, it feels like, right? And so
Not like these two.
no, no, these two are like so they're branded, right? And like then everyone wants to talk about like the cocktail party with Georgia and Florida. but I mean, that's not
It's a
even.
great one. That's a great
It's
one, but
it's
I don't
good, but
think it's not these.
Florida hasn't been relevant for a minute, right? So it doesn't even, you can't even, compare it. I think atmosphere wise, maybe that's why it's even brought up, or CDC brings it up, right? And which is hilarious. I loved how he said it, man. I mean, I really did. I thought it was a very good way of saying, all right, here we go. Like, we're coming in the SEC. This game is huge. It's going to be even bigger. Now they move it to 2:30, and it's in this prime time kind of slot. I think it's nice seeing it later in the day. In my mind, I think you're just going to have way more eyes on it. You look at from like the West Coast, not and even East Coast maybe, but I do. It's interesting to see it being moved from earlier to later. You're going to have crazy fans. Like, some people have been saying, like, dude, imagine what the drinking is going to be like
Oh,
now that we add a few more hours. It's going to be insane. And it's a SEC. It's going to it matters. It just matters more, because you don't want to be dropping games in the SEC, no matter who it is. But now you get into this rivalry being in the SEC and gets to compete with these other rivalries. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Again, we take it back, like how it's so hard for me to say it's more important or better than the Iron Bowl, because I just feel like the Iron Bowl, it's one of those games where there's just so much history involved in it. But again, that could be my bad. I just might not know the depth in the history and the Red Rivalry shootout. So, I mean, I don't
well,
know.
I think that in terms of your major college football rivalries,
Hmm.
that's why these two are unique to me.
Yeah.
Because these two are so storied, so historic, so big, right? And I have an appreciation for the Red River rivalry, even though I'm an Alabama fan, even though the Iron Bowl to me is a national holiday. It might as well be. I grew up on the Red River,
Yeah. Okay. That's badass.
right? So
Cheers
like
to you, Ty.
I saw it from both sides,
Yeah.
right? I remember being in middle school
Hmm.
and Oklahoma beat Texas, and all the Oklahoma fans, when they got to school on Monday, the PE teacher made them run laps. Right.
Damn.
And the Texas fans just had to watch. And I was standing there and I was like, well, I'm an Alabama fan. They made me run laps because I rooted for a team that was in crimson as well. Right.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like that was enough to so it's incredible. And the thing that makes this so interesting, right, is the Iron Bowl encapsulates a state.
Hmm.
And it's a national rivalry too, right? Like it is, there's a reason why whenever you talk college football rivalry, you usually arrive at three:
Yeah.
the Red
Oh,
River
for sure.
rivalry,
Yep.
the Iron Bowl, and the big game.
Yep.
But the Texas OU one, you're talking about two different states. You get
It's
what I
true.
mean? Like it's now granted, Oklahoma has two teams in it that are Power Five.
Hmm.
Texas has multiple teams in it that are Power Five. With UT, you have TCU, you have Texas Tech, you have Baylor, you have A&M,
Yeah.
and now Houston.
Hmm.
So I mean, you're looking at six Power Five schools there. It's just it's a super interesting conversation. Game is moved to 2:30,
Hmm.
and that's going to be super interesting, man. Always been an 11 o'clock kickoff, and I've seen differing opinions. What are your thoughts?
I like I said, I love it. I think it gives the fans like time. Like, you get to get there. You enjoy the fair atmosphere, right? You really enjoy. There's probably more they can do now, prior to the game, to do like events and things. That you give a little more time to do a few more like events, or put stuff out there. It's gonna really. I think it's gonna do is it's gonna build a larger platform for it. I mean, it's already a game that people love, right? And I think it's an amazing rival game. But it's interesting because, like, being earlier in the day, you're right, Boomer. It's a neutral site too, so I mean, it's unique, right, from the stance that Coach Sean, what's going on, my dog? What is
Coach,
going on? How are you
Bro,
doing?
tell me why. I swear I thought Ty said 6:30. I was in that junker napping, bro. And I was like, Link. And I looked, I said, bro, man, you an hour ahead of us, right?
yes, sir.
Man, my bad, dude.
No worries, Coach.
I was in
All
that
good.
rascal napping. Hold on, let me fix this.
No, we're in
No,
here just talking about the news about the Red River rivalry, right? Talking about it being moved. Yeah, we
Testing.
can hear you loud and clear, Coach. Talking about it being moved to 2:30. Now, I do want to push Odd Future. You're right, right? Kind of talking about the neutral site game. However, this is the only thing I'll say, Odd Future. Cotton Bowl is in the middle of a state fair, so it's going to be packed out regardless. The State Fair of Texas boasts over 2 million visitors per year. So
yeah,
it's almost one of those things where, like, if you didn't pack it out, it would be the laughing stock of college football, right? So while I completely agree with the sentiment of it being like a huge game, I'm not dismissing that. I don't agree with the thing of like, oh, well, there's nothing to do in one area and that you have a state fair going on that's one of the largest in the United States. So that,
yeah.
right, like it's going to be packed out. Even if it was a different game, it's going to be packed out. But because it's OU Texas, it's the Red River rivalry. It's certainly going to be packed out. Prime time giving you a little bit of a hard time, Coach. He says no excuses, Coach.
No,
Yeah, no excuses. Hey, I'm with you, bro. I'm with you. I almost came in here with my do-rag on. I was in there
Hey, you're
yeah.
welcome to.
napping. Man.
Oh man! But here's what I will say about that Red River rivalry and Alan Berry, man. I see you. I see you throwing these out there, man. I appreciate what you're saying.
Thank you
We'll
for
get
the 99 cents, Alan Berry.
we'll get to that in just a second. I see your next one too. We'll get to that. But I will say this: what's interesting and why I what I kind of looked at and was paying attention to is like with Alabama too, right? Like Texas, you have your pro teams there. You do have a lot of universities, right? Like all play within like a Power Four now. That's what we call it, right? Power Four. I think the rivalry too is that competition for those state recruits, right? Because Texas has so many state recruits. I mean, they're recruiting. I mean, Texas is huge, right?
Yeah.
And for kids to stay close to home, like you go to Oklahoma and have the success they have. I mean, Oklahoma has a history like no other with their
They're
program,
blue
too.
blood.
They are. I mean, I looked at some things with Oklahoma, things that I didn't know about Oklahoma, and it is very impressive. I'll be honest with you. They have some very impressive numbers. Obviously, Notre Dame's been around for a long time. Michigan, Ohio State have theirs too. But between Oklahoma and Alabama, there's some really interesting numbers that I could dig into later on. But one thing I will go back with the Iron Bowl, right, is I do think you look back in history and why this game, they like refused to play each other for forever, for a long time early on, because how does University of Alabama even get started? They basically, people branch off from Auburn because they're pissed off about the way Auburn runs their agricultural school, right? Because it was an agricultural school, wasn't it? I think it was called something along those lines. They get pissed off, they branch off, they create University of Alabama, and Auburn basically talks shit about them. They talk shit about the other one. And from there, they refuse. Like Auburn refuses to play Alabama for the longest time because they think they're below them. It's just the history of it's insane. Like, I mean, truly, it's a school that comes from another school that creates its own story and becomes relevant when they beat University of Washington back in the day, right? To basically make the SEC relevant. That was the game. It was Alabama who beat University of Washington back in the day to make it relevant. And then Auburn finally, over time, decides, we'll play each other. So it's really, the history there is hard to ignore about how much hatred there is. I mean, look at the tree with Toomer's Corner getting poisoned. I mean, shoot, I've read news stories where there's been murders over the Iron Bowl, straight up shooting somebody in the living room over the game. That's pretty. I'm sure that happens. Maybe Texas, Oklahoma, but you got
I will say this. I'm sure it happens. Having grown up on the Red River, I have zero doubt. And that's what's so interesting of this, is because I think that there is a genuine debate back and forth. And I think it's a great debate, because I think if you're an OU or Texas fan and you're sitting here saying like, I think the Red River shootout, Steven, I got you this time. I said Red River rivalry, Red River shootout. Let's call it what it is. I think if you're one of those Texas or OU fans and you're like, that's number one, Iron Bowl is number two, I think you're fair. I think if you're an Alabama or Auburn fan and you're like, no, Iron Bowl number one, Red River shootout number two, fair. I think what we can all agree on, though, Coach, and this is where I'm going to pass it to you, they both trump that Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, in my opinion. What do you think about that, Coach?
I definitely do. And I tell you, I was out there in 2017. I think if I remember, Oklahoma won like 29-23 or 29-24, something like that. And what I saw was it was so many people, bro, that were enamored. It was so much. I guess what I'm saying, it was so much going on outside of the football game. It was so much excitement for other things, and right. And that was amazing to me because I had never seen nothing like that.
It's a one of one.
Yeah. That was really, 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 really different. And then you had, both of the two sides. It was just very, 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 very different, right? It was exciting. I really enjoyed it. It's hard to compare that with the Iron Bowl. I really don't know how to compare the two, if you will, because living in this state, you gain so much hate and so much momentum for that other school in West Georgia. And I know the same with Texas and Oklahoma, but it's like when I was out there, it was so much more going on with Texas and other schools other than just Texas and Oklahoma. It's almost like if the Auburn fans would weigh the Auburn Georgia game as big as the Alabama Auburn game. It was more of that. It was so much going on around Texas at that time. And as far as the Big Ten, the game as they call it, listen, man, when you look at the schedule of Ohio State and the schedule of Michigan on a regular, Brinsky, hurt. What's up, brother? How you doing? When you look at that game, their schedule, it's almost like that's all that's on their schedule. It's like that game, the game is the only damn game you really play. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it's very, 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 and maybe I'm biased, and maybe because it's two different states and they're bordering states or not bordering states, or whatever the rivalry is, the nuts on the trees and the Wolverines and what's a Buckeye. I just found out what a Buckeye was about a year ago, right? To be completely honest, it's a damn nut. It's a nut. I didn't even know that. But no, I really do believe, Ty, when you grew up in the South, anywhere in the South, Bama, Florida, Georgia, Texas, football is so woven into your upbringing, right? When you look at the Big Ten, it's not like that with every state. It's just not like that. It's more basketball in some states. I know in Illinois, they don't give a damn about college football. They just don't care. Chicago Bears and basketball, that's all it is. So I'm a little biased. I understand that game is huge. The game is huge. But growing up in this state, I guess I'm a little biased, and it's hard for me to see fairly. You know what I mean? To be honest, I'm sort of a horrible judge in this instance.
Yeah, and let me be clear, Hummus, our resident Ohio State fan, I'm trolling, right?
Yeah.
I put Iron Bowl number 1, but that's because I'm biased towards the Iron Bowl.
Yeah.
I think the beautiful thing about this discussion is, Hummus, is if you want to say, hey, as an Ohio State fan, I put the big game number 1. I think it'd be tough to argue against it. I'm halfway trolling, right? Because we have the Bama and OU fans in here. If an OU fan says, hey, I want the Red River Shootout number 1, tough to argue against it. If a Bama fan says, hey, Iron Bowl's number 1, tough to argue against it. When I think of rivalries in college football, there's no shortage.
Yeah.
But I don't know that any get close to those 3, right? It's like those 3, however you want to order them, I don't know that they get close. Brinsky, what's up, my guy? Happy you're in here. We're going to hit some comments.
What's going on, man? I said I had to go ahead and jump on here with my dog.
Happy you're in here, man. Alan Berry saying Alabama.
Sean, what's going on?
Man, you got it, brother. Good to see you, bro. Good to see you.
Oh, yeah.
Alan Berry with the $5 saying Alabama defensive higher grades. We will get into that this evening, Alan, when we start talking about the SEC. Dwight asked, what's the record? It's very close, Dwight. They've been pretty competitive games in terms of the Red River rivalry. Steven, shout out to you for giving him that information. Lisa Fitz saying Red River is an interstate fun game that sometimes matters. Iron Bowl is an intrastate game. Intense battle that always matters. Roll Tide, you gentlemen are always worth watching. Thank you for the $10, Lisa. Like I said, guys, I grew up on the Red River, and that gave me such an appreciation for this game. That's why you will always hear me speak very fondly of it, because Coach Sean, right before you got in here, Brinsky, before y'all got in here, I was telling Jake the story of being in middle school. I remember OU won. We came back on that Monday, and the PE teacher, who was a Texas fan, whose daughter went to Texas, they made all the OU fans run laps during PE. And I had to run laps as well, just because I rooted for Alabama and they were in crimson. So they were like, well, you're included too, go. So it's different, man. Like it's awesome. It's really fun. Crazy turn of events. Yep, that is wild. We have an Auburn fan in here. Happy you're in here, Auburn fan. And, hopefully y'all beat New Mexico State this year. We can only pray. LaQuasia, thank you for being in here.
LaQuasia.
Of course, Guts. Kimberly, happy you're in here. We got a Missouri fan in here. Can't wait to talk about Missouri, guys. That's going to be fun. Antoine in here. American sports. I think it's close, Hummus, but it's like one of those things. Like I said, like I'm certainly trolling when I'm like, oh, it's it is what it is. But like, I think any of those three are going to be the ones, right? Those are going to be the ones. We have Carla in here. We have Ephraim in here. Piano Man. Big 10 overall schedule this week. Yeah, it hasn't been what it is. It's just, it leaves a little bit to be desired. Zachary in here. We got Gary in here. Cynthia in here. Kimberly. Yeah, Hummus. That's exactly where I sit on it. We have Brinsky. Be sure to subscribe to Brinsky's channel.
Yes. No, his stuff right down here. Boom. Sharp Shooters Podcast. It's good. I love your stuff, man. And you had an awesome interview the other day too, which was phenomenal.
Awesome.
You guys
appreciate you.
Go check that out, man. And what's up, man? I'm Jake Merrill. Nice to meet you. We
finally. Finally.
I thought y'all had done stuff together. That's my
no,
apology.
Not yet, man.
Not yet. I love
it. Mike Ford,
Coach Sean.
Yeah.
Keenan, thank you for being in here. Dundee's asking, will the Iron Bowl be of course it will. Is top notch. Yeah, Mike, those three are just so good.
Yeah.
Right? Just so good.
I would throw, if you're talking about just the hate, it may not be as popular as those rivalries, but if you're talking about the hate, I think the Egg Bowl should be there as well. Because those two, I know it's in state, but those two schools hate each other, bro. Like Ole Miss and Mississippi State.
That's a good one.
Yeah, they have some serious hate. And if I'm being honest, if we can be honest as fans, like we all joke with who has the best rivalry and all that. But if we're being honest about one thing, and this to my Big Ten fans, Mike Ford, you my brother. I love Mike Ford to death. He one of them realistic Michigan fans. He gonna let you know, but he gonna talk football. If we be real, and like we be real, Hummus, when you look at Ohio State and Michigan, two great universities, arguably the greatest game of them all, right? Arguably. You have to be honest. And when you look at the schedules of Michigan and Ohio State on a normal basis, you look at you guys' schedules, Penn State, Wisconsin. That is totally different, brother. In playing, look at Auburn. They had to play Bama and Georgia a week apart at one point in time.
Damn.
Like, let's be Texas A&M at Texas A&M, Bama, LSU, Tennessee. Like, can we just be honest and say all of our rivals are arguably the best, but the SEC schedule to get to that rivalry is much different.
Dude, it's a tough. Bresky, what do you think, man?
Like, I am super biased, of course, but the Iron Bowl is top tier. It's the cream of the crop. It's the standard. It is definitely the standard. Anybody that thinks otherwise, I say go to one game. It doesn't matter what year, how bad the teams are. I guarantee you're going to walk out of there like, oh, yeah, this is one of the best rivalries because it's 365. Everybody will say their rivalry is 365, but our rival is in state. This is like you have to pick. You either Auburn or you're Alabama. There's no in between. You either one or the other. And you're going to see house divided flags on tags, on houses or whatnot. You go to Auburn, it's blue and orange. You go to Tuscaloosa, you see that crimson and white. I'm like, man, I don't even think it's close Now I hear what you're saying about the Red River rivalry. Like it's cool. Had one of our guys I was arguing with earlier about that, but I think Ohio State and Michigan is above them for many reasons. I believe they're above them by a long shot because Michigan last 2 Heisman winners coming from Ohio, and it's big when you take their players out their state.
Yeah.
And they go to Michigan and then they ball on Ohio State is different. But I don't think nothing compares to the Iron Bowl. But a rivalry, I'm surprised that none of y'all said is that Florida State Miami.
I almost did, but dude.
USC Notre Dame.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good one, but don't get me wrong. I think Miami, Florida State, but you got to go it's been weird. You got to go back, really back into history to see it again be relevant. It just has not been consistently relevant, right? Like it feels like with the Red River rivalry, at least it's always somewhat relevant, whether no matter what the record is. Like people pay attention nationwide, right? I mean, Auburn, Alabama is always relevant. I mean, it just goes through history. It always shows its relevancy. Michigan, Ohio State, always extremely relevant, just because it seems to be who wins at the time, right? Like who won that Big Ten. So I mean. But yeah, Miami, Florida State, it was a fun one to watch when you had like the when you have like these guys when Miami was Studley and playing against like Bobby Bowden's teams, right? Like that was a time. Now it's just kind of like you don't really know what you're going to get, and who knows what they're going to look like between those two teams this next year, So I don't know.
Let me get to this comment right here because hummus. I might have lost it because we have so many. Okay, here we go. You can't just take the past 20 years though. The SEC wasn't the best. In college football, there's certainly ebbs and flows, right? But I do think that whenever we're talking about like what we're experiencing now, right? There's a balancing act that must occur, and I think you're well placed where we have to simultaneously acknowledge the history of the rivalry, but also there has to come a point where it's like, okay, well, the kids playing in this rivalry weren't alive for so
yeah, man,
you're right, hummus, but that's an interesting conversation to have. And in the interest of transparency and being as unbiased as possible, let's turn to the viewership where, listen, hummus, Mike, y'all be very happy. It's not close. This past year, 19.1 million viewers on Fox for Michigan, Ohio State. Alabama versus Auburn was 9.09 million, and Texas versus OU was 8.1 million. So, Mike, hummus, fair play to you. Right? Like, if we're looking at the most objective metric that I can really go to, that's huge. To double the second one, that's huge. Huge. I'll tell you what else is huge, gentlemen. We got Killtack with the 20 saying, no one ever poisoned a tree, then called a radio show about it to admit it with other. Roll damn Tide, Paul. Yeah, that was
huge,
wild.
Ty? What else is huge?
Lynn Shaney felt with the 25 saying, I have to donate to my guys. You know how I feel when I get to see you guys together and we get to talk ball. I always knew I was going to Bama to play, but I always respected OU, Texas, and Nebraska. Traditions are rich. Yeah, 100%.
No, true, man.
OU's a blue blood.
True, dude. I mean, shoot. When I was coming through, back in the day, right, of going through like that process, you look back, it was like Texas and Oklahoma. Texas having like Vince Young, right? That's at that time frame. Oklahoma, like you still had like Oklahoma was still Oklahoma. I can still sit there and think of like Adrian Peterson, right, and like these Studley teams that were just they were beasts, and I mean, and it was so relevant in everything. So it's funny, Ty, you bring up that number regarding Ohio State, Michigan viewership. It'd be interesting to see on average, though, as we go through like a 10-year time frame, how that breaks down between those three games, because I think that viewership last year made a huge difference because everyone's waiting to see, does Michigan lose and does it shake up this massive playoff spot?
Very good point. Very good point.
And it was for a playoff spot for real, because one of those teams lose. Yeah. The other team was going to win the Big Ten and be in the college football player, so it was a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it still get the viewerships like they usually do.
Oh, for sure. for sure. I mean, and I think it will always get that viewership just because, I mean, it has a lot of history too. There's documentaries on that game as well. I'd be interested to see, like, I don't know if I've ever looked at it, and I'll have to look if there's a documentary like that maybe ESPN does, or a big one company on the Red River rivalry, just because it is. I don't know. I don't think I've seen one. Man, see, that would be cool to see. Why don't they do that? ESPN, let's go, or Netflix.
That'd be a great documentary.
It would.
I know HBO has one on Ohio State and Michigan. And ESPN has that 30 for 30. But yeah, they definitely need one.
Yeah, the Iron Bowl one was man, that was good.
Coach good. Jay in the house, how you doing, Jan?
My dog.
Oh man, I just got in, man. What's going on, fellas? I had to hurry my ass off, man. I was on Mayfield. I was trying to find a good Father's Day present. I know he likes his fragrances, so I was trying on a bunch of fragrances. My nose is torn up. You guys can see I'm just keep rubbing it.
You need that coffee. You need the coffee beans, bro. You need the coffee beans.
I'm trying to get into like the whole fragrance thing, guys. Man, I'm getting torn up, man. I'm just getting torn up.
I'll shoot you some recommendations. I have this weird thing where I never buy the same cologne twice. So I have like a whole list of like what I'm like, okay, this is what's super good. This is what's like decent. I have the whole list.
Yeah, please, man. Because I think the last cologne I bought for my dad was it was Spice Bomb. It was Spice Bomb Extreme, and I bought it for him during the summertime, and he hated it. He hated me because I'm like, bro, that's a winter fragrance. Why you got me a summer fragrance? Why you got me a winter fragrance for the summer, man? You want me all here smell like a hot spicy laundromat? I'm like, I listen. They told me they said this is good. I smelled it. I liked it. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we're in here talking about these rivalries, these three rivalries, and we got some interesting conversation going. Boomer, I saw you were right about 1 year talking about viewership. You're certainly correct in that. I was just looking for an objective metric on this past year specifically to kind of quantify like how the eyes were on each games. Jay, I didn't know if you saw. I didn't realize, and Hummus is saying, to be fair, that the combined fan base of Michigan and Ohio State's probably bigger than the other one. That's fair. But I didn't realize how big of a gap there was between the viewership of like Ohio State, Michigan, and y'all made very good points about like what the game meant, right? That one of the teams was playing for a playoff spot. Will Michigan lose? But I didn't realize that there was that big of a gap in viewership. We looked at this, Jay, and Ohio State, Michigan this past year was 19.1 million viewers. Bama, Auburn was 9.09, and the Red River Shootout was 8.1.
Yeah. Michigan, Ohio State, in terms of brands, they're the two. They're two of probably. I was going on Coach Moot. They're two of probably some of the biggest brands, not just in college football, but in all of sports. Like we're talking about from every sport imaginable, from every sport part of their program imaginable. Like these are the two premier. These are the two kind of premier rivalries when they're on, right? When they're both very, very good. They play normally because it's the last week of the regular season. A lot of stuff is on the line. People are going to watch that game. My biggest issue with Michigan, Ohio State is that it's literally been lopsided over the last kind of 20 to 25 years. It's been a lopsided rivalry until just recently over the last kind of 3 years where Michigan has kind of owned Ohio State in that factor. And so, yes, the games have been great for the last 3. Well, no. I'll take that back. 2 out of the 3 years, it's been take that back. 1 out of 3 years, it's been great games. Because 2 of them Ohio State has lost by double digits and they've gotten destroyed in the fourth quarter. The other game in 22, Michigan put up, I think 50 points. It was 50 points. So, but the Iron Bowl, in my opinion, that is the best rivalry in college football. It is not the last 20 years, not even a question. You've had way more classic football games. If you look at the top 10 or top 15 games of all time, and for every single site, there's at least 3 to 4 Auburn and Alabama games always on that list. There's pretty much right now one Michigan Ohio State game, and that was the 2016 game, which again that was a deciding factor to whoever was going to get in the Big Ten championship. But the Alabama Iron Bowl games, they're always putting on classics. You're talking about a historic rivalry. You're talking about classic last second, literally last second sort of victories that's going on right now. Not to mention the fact that when you take a look at the teams that have played in the national championship, Alabama and Auburn, at least for I think 14 or 15 times out of the last 20 years, it's been either an SEC champion winner or it's been a team that's been in the playoff or has appeared for a national championship game. Remember, Auburn has been to 2 national titles. They've won the SEC. They've won the SEC 3 times, I believe, out of that factor. They've also, in a way, won. Of course, they got the national championship. They ever produced a Heisman Trophy winner just by just by winning the Iron Bowl. And of course, obviously, we all know our success. So, and we're talking about from again, history standpoint. Of course, winning back all the years, even though I think Alabama and Auburn has put up some classics. Michigan, Ohio State, from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, that was them all day. But from what we've seen over the last kind of 20 years, no, there's no question. It's the Iron Bowl. That's the greatest rivalry of all time. I know everybody wants to talk about the in-state Texas rivalry, and yes, those games are classic every single year. State Fair, 300,000 people. The crowd environment, it's amazing. But let's be honest here. What is the significance of that game? What does that game resulted to? Right? Only one time that it truly was a defining game, and that was the Big 12 championship game. Besides that, though, I think the game it actually hurts itself because it's played in week 5 or week 6 every year.
Yep, some of the OU fans have pointed that out, and I think that's a great point.
Yeah, it hurts it. Like if that game was played at the end of the year, State Fair, all stakes involved, both sides included, and all of a sudden the winner of that game, it decides who's going to win the division or who could potentially even go on and play for a national championship. Then honestly, you can that's a big case. That might actually be my number one above Michigan and Ohio State. But no, Alabama, Auburn, it has everything you need. It's got the rivalry. It's got the history, and it's got the significance. I mean, look at the national champions. Look at the SEC champion winners, the divisional winners, all that stuff like that. Michigan, Ohio State, they're just getting to that. They're just getting to that now with that rivalry. Auburn beat Saban, I think 4 to 5 times that he beat Saban, and how many of those, because of that win, they've been able to win an SEC championship at least, or play and win a national champion. What has Michigan? What has Michigan, Ohio State? Ohio State and Michigan combined has 2 national championships in the last 25 years. Auburn has been to 2 national championship games in less time frame than what they've done recently. So when we talk about the significance in play, there's no question the Iron Bowl is the best rivalry in college sports.
See, here's something interesting. Dud Dundee's echoes what you say, Coach Jay, saying it would be a better metric if OU versus Texas was also at the end of the year. I agree. Yeah. I very much will agree with that. But Boomer129 asked about how old is each rivalry. Well, I pulled that up. The Iron Bowl started in 1893. The Red River Shootout, the first game in the series, was played in 1900. And Michigan, Ohio State, their first meeting was 1897. So out of the oldest, Alabama Auburn is the oldest by 4 years. Mike Fort points out that there also was a gap where Alabama and Auburn didn't play. But that leads us into more conversations. Killtack with the $10 saying, I don't think you could be at the top of the rivalry when your game doesn't even have a game name. Yeah, well, listen, it's the big game, but I wish they would have something.
It's just Michigan and Ohio State, man. It doesn't get any better.
That's why they call it the game. That's what they call it. It's the game. Well, what game when Ohio State has owned Michigan over the last 20 years? They've owned them. And these score results haven't been close. Guys, if we talk about the last encounter since 2000, only 4 games out of between the two where it was close games. And I'm talking double-digit scores. Besides that, the winner of the game normally is winning by at least by double digits. These games haven't been that competitive. It hasn't been that close. And yes, you look at the history, 2007, great game. Everything was on the line. Whoever was going to win that game had a great chance of winning a national championship. 2016 overtime, great game. That was going to decide who's going to be playing for the playoff. 2011, even though it is, Ohio State was 5. They had 5 wins that year. All-time classic game. Besides that, though, what great game? What game was a game that we can go back and replay? Again, if we take a look at the all-time ranking for best college football games of all time, if you look at the top 15, or if you look at the top 15, Alabama and Auburn has the most games. The second team is Oklahoma and Texas. And then Michigan and Michigan, Ohio State, they're not in the top 3. They're not in the top 4. They're not even in the top 5. They're not even in the top 10. If you actually take a look at the rankings, they're not even in the top 10. They have one game, and that was from 2016. That's the top 15 of all time. Besides that, Alabama and Auburn has the most. They've owned it. That's the case closed right there.
Yeah, and Hummus is saying 3 national championships in the past 21 years for you have your Ohio State, Michigan, but Hummus, I hear what you're saying, right? Like, no doubt, but
can I say something?
Y'all owned Michigan. Go ahead, Coach.
I hope I'm not lagging. My internet has been really tripping with me the last couple of days. I don't know
what's going on.
Listen, man, respectfully to all fan bases, respectfully, but a lot of these kids who are 18 years old have no recollection of you winning a damn thing, bro. That's a problem. That's a problem. Taking nothing from these great institutions. If an 18-year-old kid has no recollection of you even being good enough to win anything, okay, 20 years ago you won. Okay, respect. The SEC has dominated this stuff, right? If we're being honest, I just want to say that, and I'll be quiet.
The standard.
And shout out to my brother, Coach Smoot, too.
Shout out Coach Smoot in the chat.
Oh yeah, I don't even know why it's even a question, man. Like, it was at one point they got tired of SEC playing in the national championship. I'm sorry that Auburn had to mess up that streak against Florida State.
Exactly.
Got to throw a little shade here and there.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, let's move to the conversation for this evening, right? Rivalries was just the appetizer. We're breaking down the 2 conferences in the Big Ten and the SEC, talking about who stands to make a run for their conference championship. Who are teams that you need to watch for the upcoming season? We're going to start with the Big Ten. And gentlemen, I have a question, and we'll do this roundtable style, right? So that it's always easy, unless I reverse it. But we'll go Jake, Coach Sean, Jance, and then Brinsky. My first question when we're talking about the Big Ten is Ohio State under the most pressure? And I don't mean in the Big Ten. I mean in all of college football, right? Kill Tac 9 saying they killed the BCS because of Alabama, LSU, and Auburn. Yeah, that's true. Fair play, Hummus. How many national championships does Auburn have? They have the one in 2013. Wait, not 2013? 2010. Thank you. 2010.
This is what I was saying. It's not Alabama's fault that Oklahoma State botched it against Iowa. It's not against Iowa State. If they would have won that game, there's a great chance the BCS could have been going on still to this day if Oklahoma State decided not to botch it against a 4-win Iowa State football team on a Friday night. If they would have won that game, they would have won undefeated. They would have played LSU for the national championship. Based off of the BCS points, it's not based off of people. This is based off of the computer rankings. They would have been in. So that's history. Unfortunately, this is not Assassin's Creed. So you can't really, you can't go to the animus and alternate history. But yeah, the BCS could have probably still been going on if Oklahoma State never would have botched it to Iowa State that year.
And Mike Fort says Oklahoma State had a fatal plane crash that week. I kind of give them a pass for that one.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. And here's the thing, Hummus. Like y'all
they were asked if they wanted to play in that game, if they want to postpone it.
Everybody, Jarek's an asshole.
they decided they wanted to play in the game. So it hurts, but you could have postponed it. You could have pushed it back another week. But no, you decided that you wanted to play the game. So you played the game and you got your ass kicked. Don't blame it on anybody else but yourself.
Tell the truth, shame the devil.
And at the end of the day, that's real.
9 years ago.
And here's what I'll say, Hummus. You're right. Right. Fair enough. Michigan won last year. Y'all had one 9 years ago. But here's what I'll say. The reason why, to me, the big game is a little bit as great of a rivalry as it is y'all owned Michigan. Up until this recent stretch, like, y'all were just whooping them for a while. And it was like, okay, this is just going to be another Ohio State W. And it wasn't like whenever we watch, say, the Iron Bowl, where there was the kick six, there was the cam back, there was the 4th and 31, there was the Bryce Young 95-yard drive, right? So it was that's where I think this discussion becomes very interesting. But we could be here all day.
Yeah.
Let's move to this right here. Is
it.
Ohio State under the most pressure? Once again, I don't mean in the Big Ten. I mean in all of college football. Jake, start with you.
Oh, yes. That, I mean, especially with you look at the like amount of money they just spent. I mean, and the roster transformation, and you bring in like Chip Kelly from an offensive coordinator standpoint. You have to, Ryan Day has to win. Like this, that hot seat question, it shouldn't even be a question. He is on the hot seat. There's just too much at stake. And you look at kind of what he's done, and he just has not produced the results with the amount of talent he has around him, along with the amount of talented coaching staff he has around him. You have some really strong coaches in there. I mean, you really do. And then you bring in, and additionally, you want a high power offense. So you bring in Chip Kelly, right? To try and increase those numbers. And they've looked good, and their offense has looked good in the past. But I'm saying, like, from his standpoint, this is the year that he has to win. I mean, his defense is supposed to look solid, right? His offense, with all the weapons they have around them, is supposed to look really good. They have 2 options at quarterback. Who are they going to pick? Because it sounds like right now we don't really know. You know, I imagine they go with Howard, but I think overall, you know, like he has to finally produce with what he has around him, and especially this year. This is the year, and it's going to be a challenge. It's not going to be easy. I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, Ohio State's kind of a walk in the park," besides a few games here and there. No, I think when we do go over this tie from the Big Ten standpoint, it is going to be really interesting to see some of these teams that we are not expecting to, or maybe have not thought about as much in depth, that are actually going to present a huge challenge to Ohio State throughout the season. So,
who would you put up there?
Well, it depends. I mean, I got to break down their schedule real quick. But if you look at from a challenge of who's going to win this division, right? I mean, how can you not put Oregon in there right now? Yep. I mean, you go out in a wild card and say, what is Nebraska even going to look like? Right? Like, there's a lot of talk right now with Nebraska. I know it's a weird one to bring up because people are like, well, wait a minute, but Nebraska was dog shit. Yeah, but you also have to look at Matt Rule and what he does. His first year, notoriously from college standpoint, is always terrible. He always has a brutal first year in college. Like, if you look at his coaching like background, but then all of a sudden things pick up. Is Dylan Raiola like the you know, the second coming for Nebraska to finally pick this back up? I mean, the kid's good, right? Like, is he good enough to inspire this team? I mean, they filled some holes. I mean, look, people are excited. There's a reason why the recruiting classes are ranked so high right now, and it's going to continue to build. So that's another team. I think, shoot, we could go through and we'll look at USC. We can't rule out USC and Lincoln Riley. We don't know necessarily what the types of, I guess, especially from that quarterback position, is going to be a huge question mark, right? Like, what do they have?
Miller Moss.
Yeah, but I mean, again, you're replacing Caleb Williams. Like, like how is this kid going to complement what he did? Like, how's the system work for this kid? We just have not seen that yet. So there's question marks, right? And then defensively, we can't sit there and say their defense is fixed yet. Yeah, they got coaching staff in place, but is it fixed? We don't know. Right. So there are some teams. And again, Michigan, I don't want to like not give Michigan the credit they deserve. Granted, they lost a lot, right? But they are still bringing back on the defensive side. Their defense looks pretty damn good. Their secondary looks impressive. Okay.
Defensively going to be a good team.
Yeah. And defense wins. In the end of the day, you can shut down an offense. Look what they did last year. All they did was run the damn ball. because they had a good defense. They didn't need to do anything else, So there is some question marks as we go through with Ohio State. Like, what are you going to be able to do differently that will work this time that you should have done in the past, right? And wasn't working before. Like, what are you changing, right? That's the big question mark for Ryan Day. And if you can't change and can't adapt, then what's the next step for Ohio State to get back to a championship caliber team? Because I hate to say it, but until you are going consistently to the playoffs, the national championship, right, and winning, then you can't sit there and say you're a championship caliber team. So they're good. I'm not trying to throw that shade, but what are you going to do with what you have? Because you have the pieces. So what are you going to do?
Coach Sean.
I think Ohio State is under immense pressure for the simple fact that they've gotten beat by Michigan the last 2 years. What, two years? I think it is. Anytime a rival can beat you the way Michigan has beaten Ohio State the last 3 years total. Wow. So, I mean, forget the fact that you paid all that money to get these young kids from other rosters, right? Forget the fact that you spent collective monies astronomical to the state, to the university, to Ohio State University. Forget that. The fact that Michigan has won, your rival up the road, the school up north, or whatever you want to call it, has won the national championship. They won the Natty for the Big Ten, right? You look at, like Dude said, you look at the 9 years, and in the 9 years, that same span, there's been 3 SEC schools to win national championships, 3 different schools, right? So for Michigan to come back for the Big Ten and represent the Big Ten and win that thing, that's huge. That anytime your rival wins a Natty, it always lights a fire under the said rival. So none other than that, the pressure's on Ryan Day. You look at the roster this man has. You look at the kids they brought in from other universities. You look at their collective roster. He better win. He better win, man, because I can promise you, now that Jim Harbaugh has won a Natty, say what you want about all these reasons why people are giving. Michigan won. You can't take that from them. Michigan came out, went undefeated, dominated college football. That alone is enough to put enough pressure on Ryan Day to cause some real big friction if he does not get it done this year. If Ryan Day does not get it done this year, I think him, along with Mario Cristobal, just may be in trouble. That's just my humble opinion.
And Mario Cristobal is an interesting coach. You and I have talked about him, that I think that's a sleeper for a hot seat that not a lot of people are talking about for the opposite reason of Billy Napier. We might get into that in a little bit. Jance, talk to me, my man.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna do a couple of things. I'm gonna read you their schedule, and I'm gonna read you their depth chart. And I want chat to tell me if they can't get the job done, does he deserve to be fired? Because I'm not talking about he needs to be on the hot seat for next year. I think he needs to be fired. And you need to promote Brian Hartline potentially as your head coach, only because Brian Hartline, he's getting a lot of love. And that university, a lot of their athletic board, they love him to death. They honestly believe that he's honest, that from what I've heard from a couple of Ohio State fans, and we got some in the chat, but they feel like Brian Hartline is a more valuable piece to that program than Ryan Day right now. They feel like he's a more valuable asset in terms of recruiting. All the players, regardless of position, love him. Of course, he's known as the best receiving coach in terms of development. So I'm just going to read you guys the depth chart just real quick. So this is their depth chart. Jeremiah Smith, Tate Carnell, Emeka Ibuka, offensive line, Josh Simmons, first round pick projection, Donovan Jackson, top 50 pick overall projection, Josh Fryer, top 100 pick projection. Let's see, G. Scott Jr., he's known as a top 150 overall projection. You have Travion Henderson and Quinshawn Jenkins, 2 dudes who are projected to go top 50 in this year's NFL draft.
And someone asked how good their running back room was. Extraordinary.
It's the best running back room. It might be the best running back room in the country. Jack Sawyer, first round projection. Ty Hamilton, top 50 overall projection. Tyleek Williams, first round projection. JT Tuamalo, first round projection. CJ Hicks, first round projection. Cody Simon, first-round projection. Denzel Burke, top 5 corner in this class, first-round projection. Who else? Caleb Downs, we all know,
first-round projection. Yeah.
Jordan Hancock, top 50 overall projection. That's their depth chart. That's the deepest depth chart going into this year out of any team in the country. Now, let's take a look at their schedule. Because their schedule,
Akron.
Exactly, Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall. Who else they got here? Michigan State, Iowa, no offense. Their defense is stacked, but their offense is terrible. Then you play Oregon, first difficult game. Then you play Nebraska. You're at Penn State, that could be a difficult game. You have Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, and then you play Michigan. But here's the thing about this, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to go undefeated to make the playoffs. You simply you can lose 2 games in this conference and you can still get in. Not to mention the fact that if they lose to Michigan in the regular season, they can play them the next week because there's no divisions. So this is why we keep saying, ladies and gentlemen, that rivalry games are not going to matter as much anymore, especially in this conference, which doesn't even have divisions.
Same with the SEC now.
Indianapolis. The same thing with the SEC conference. So if Ohio State, for some odd reason, let's just say for the sake of argument, they lose to Michigan twice, they still have a chance of getting in because of the strength of their conference, even if they lose to them back-to-back. So the only way for them to not get into the playoffs and for them to not compete is if they have to lose 3 games. That's the only way for them not to be at least be an at-large bid. So if they can't make the playoffs with the schedule that they have, with the deepest roster that they might have actually had since 2015, ironically, they didn't make the playoffs, then he needs to be fired. And let me tell you something, if you can't win a national championship or at least make it to a national championship game with this roster that you have, you need to be fired. And you need to promote Brian Hartline to be the head, because it's already been trending. It's already been trending in that direction for the last 2 to 3 years. Smoke has been the frying pan for the last 3 years. Brian Hartline needs to be the new head coach of your football team. You need to fire Ryan Day because he just can't get the job done. Just can't get it done. Has beaten Michigan 1 time this year. 1 time he's done it. In the playoffs, the only notable win that he has was against Clemson. Every other game he's choked against because of poor mismanagement decisions from his standpoint, which has been the biggest criticism of Ryan Day, is that he's been a terrible general manager, great recruiter, can form a hell of a coaching staff, but he cannot manage a football game. That's one of the biggest red flags you can have in your coach. And we call that, ladies and gentlemen, the modern day version of a Tom Thibodeau or a Sean McDermott. Great managers in terms of building their rosters, but when it comes to coaching and making in-game decisions, can't coach worth a damn. We already seen that with Brian Kelly for all the years he was at Notre Dame, and we're seeing it now with Ryan Day. So this is it. If he can't win me a national championship with this roster, there's no excuse. He needs to go. I don't give a crap who my quarterback is. I saw Michigan win a national championship with a quarterback who threw the ball on average 17 times a game. I don't need no excuse that about Will Howard. I don't give a crap about that crap. You're the quarterback guru. You're the expert. Make it work. You got the best offensive line in the country, the best running game in the country, the best receiving room in the country, the best defensive line in the country, the best linebacker room in the country, the best secondary room in the country. You better make it work. Because if you can't make it work with that roster, your ass deserves to be fired. And you deserve to be with the Florida Gators, coaching them up and trying to rebuild and proving that they can be the ones that can be the guy. Jesus, man. I'm tired of these Ohio State fans. It's all the hype. They think that they're roster and they think that they can go ahead and win a national championship. Well, you better prove it. This year, you better prove it. There's no excuse for you to not win a national championship with that all-star Monstars roster that you decided to buy and purchase. So it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. It is what it is.
And that poor man's schedule.
I'm not going to add a word onto this one, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to pass it to Brent.
Shit, what a rant.
and Hummus does agree with you, though, Jance. He says, I agree. If Day doesn't get it done this year, it's time to move on. But let's be fair and look at Kirby's record against Bama and in big games going into year 6. Kirby has 2 rings.
2 rings? What is it? What?
So that's I get it. Saban has been the boogeyman, but where that differs, Hummus, is that Saban and Bama were winning national championships or competing in them. this is the first time Michigan has been in the playoffs and the national championship since the playoff era, right? So it's not analogous. When Kirby was losing to Saban was then going to play 4 national championships, being in the playoffs. We haven't seen that. I understand the basis of your comment, and I don't think that you're 100% off, but I don't think it's an analogous comparison because that's my fault, Hummus. Then I misread your comment. Then you're 100% on, right? He was saying year 6 before the 2 rings, in which case you're 100% right. I misread that. That's 100% on me.
He wasn't on the hot seat though. That's the thing about Kirby Smart. He wasn't on the hot seat because they were going to be patient with him. Remember they fired what's his name? They fired yes, they fired Mark Richt for that exact reason for Ryan Day, because Mark Richt had over almost 2 decades to turn it around, which he did. He helped turn on the program. But what happened? He couldn't even compete for a national championship. And he had national championship teams. He had it. Just couldn't get it done. Just couldn't get through Bama.
Killtack with 20 saying that cologne got you amped up.
That Spice Bomb is free, man.
Spice Bomb get you lit.
The Spice Melange.
Man, you can smell it miles away, man. I'm telling you.
But that's Hummus. My bad. I misinterpreted your comment, and if we are saying before the Natties, you're 100% right. But that's my fault. I misinterpreted your comment. Brinsky, follow that up.
Yeah, I wish you let me go before him. I don't know what else to say after that. Like everything he said was spot on, and the only thing I probably add on to that, you forgot Sonny Styles. Another. Probably be a first round pick for those guys. So my only question with those guys was literally Will Howard. He is the only weak link of that whole the whole team. I just seen what Will Howard did against Texas, and I'm still mad about that because I wanted them to beat Texas. But Will Howard is the weak link. They will go as far as he go. I said, if he loses to Michigan, I don't know if Michigan is going to be the team that played in the Big Ten last year. I think Oregon is going to be ahead of them this year. I just don't see Michigan playing in the Big Ten championship. If he loses to Michigan, I said if he loses to Michigan, the only thing that can save him is winning that national championship. But if he beat Michigan with the roster that he has, because, of course, I expect him to win the Big Ten. The only way he can save his job if he play in the national championship. And it has to be a close loss. Because there's just no way. That team is just set up for them to win. But I feel like they still going to find a way to lose, like Ohio State usually does.
You just said it, man. Like, I'm going to add to that real quick, because here's the thing about this team, right? Is you have all these pieces. You are trying so hard to put everything together and get this buy-in, right? As a coach, to get all these guys on the same page. Yeah, you list their schedule. Everyone's like, okay, it's a cupcake schedule. I mean, but there's also, I look at that schedule and I'm like, there are a number of games on there that they easily could overlook. And when you do get this sort of hype about talent, yeah, Oregon, that's an easy game. I don't think they'll overlook Oregon. If they do, then you got to get fired for sure if you're overlooking Oregon, because that they're loaded too. So, but there's also other games in there that people are not expecting them to even pay attention to. We look at this, right? We're looking at, okay, Iowa. A lot of people are going to sit there and say Iowa. No, not Iowa. Iowa has a good defense. Let's see what their new offensive coordinator does. Do they flip some things around? And now do they become somewhat dangerous? There's a question mark there, right?
They'll average 5.5 on offense this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. They probably will, right? But then you look Penn State, right? That's a game. It's a challenging game. But that's another thing we run into, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but can Penn State finally get out from their continuous same cycle, right?
Well, they got some stuff they got to get out from before the season even comes. That article that we talked about not long ago with the medical staff thing.
Yes, I 100% agree. That will be the big question mark for them. But like I'll keep saying it, is Nebraska poised to make, because there'll be a game a lot of people will overlook until they start winning, right? A lot of people are going to be like, Nebraska. But Nebraska, oddly enough, last year, even watching them play, they had a lot of tight games too, right? So it's not like they're just out and they're just getting blown out. They have little things that they're fixing. I think they're doing a good job of that. Again, you can't ignore recruits when they feel the excitement and energy at a place. You know something's going on there, and you're like, okay, what is about to happen going into the season? Because when David Sanders Jr., the number one offensive tackle, says, I'm going to take an official visit to Nebraska, everybody better start paying attention to what's going on in Nebraska, because that came out of nowhere, right? Out of nowhere. And people are going, oh, wait a minute. I think there was some rumor going out too, like even Juju Lewis was starting to get a little bit of heads up there. Now, would that happen? I don't know. I don't think so. But Raiola, what he does is going to be also very interesting to watch. The kid is a stud. I mean, he's a stud. Can he take the productivity of what's around him and make it better, right? Compared to what the play they had last year at quarterback, which was horrendous. Okay, so there's a lot of games on there, and Ohio State is notorious for running into these, especially when you get this sort of notoriety. They are getting so much love from the media. I mean, all of us are talking about it. Their roster, they're so good, they're loaded. But can they keep the mindset of being like, we are disciplined enough to ignore that? And I don't know if they can. You know what I mean? That's the thing about it. I don't know how well they are gelling right now. So we'll see.
And I'm glad that you brought up them sleeper games, because it's 2 playoff spots that they lost because they slept. Like Dwayne Haskins that year when they played Purdue, and they went up there and got threats.
Yeah.
Or that year when they went up to Iowa and got threats too. Those are 2 games, and then they had the audacity. Urban Meyer had the audacity to try to argue that because we won our conference, but you got blown out by these. Yeah. Alabama can play those teams 100 times. We would not lose like that to no Purdue.
Yeah.
I want to say this right here. Kiltack had a funny comment saying it's hard to talk about Purdue whenever Bama did what they did against UCF this past year. Touche. But UCF was
raining.
Well, they were also a darn good team. Did I say UCF?
I'll say this too, Kai.
USF. Yeah. They were a darn good team too. Like USF. My apologies. Go ahead, Coach.
Look, Akron last year was 2-10. Western Michigan was 4-8, right? Marshall was 6-7. Michigan State was 4-8. Iowa had a good season. Nebraska was 5-7. Purdue was 4-8. Northwestern had a decent season. Indiana was 3-9. Like, bro, listen. Iowa, maybe that's a challenge. Penn State, maybe, and Oregon.
And they got no offense, Coach Sean. They literally
exactly. And
special teams.
Facts. And
who's
check it out, all these games. Yes. And, I don't know who their QB is, but all these games these guys play are at home. The Michigan State is on the road, the Northwestern game's on the road, and Penn State. Like, if they don't win, if they don't go undefeated on this schedule, something's damn wrong. Like, are we really? Every team on this schedule, basically, besides 3, had a losing damn record last year. Like, come on, man. Like, they should skate through it. If you can't get through this schedule, I don't want to hear you talking about playing LSU, Tennessee, Florida, and Bama back to back to back. Like, stop it. Like, you should win the Big Ten. You should beat Oregon. You should beat Oregon like a drum. Oregon is great. They're the newcomer to your conference. You're Ohio State with a I'll catch you off air and tell you what I really think of your schedule. You should win this. You should go through this schedule easy peasy lemon damn squeezy, bro. If you think this schedule's tough, I challenge you to go look at Florida Gators schedule, right? And see, could you get through that? You know what I mean? And that's just the bottom line.
Yeah, that Florida schedule. I don't know what they have on Billy Napier, but
yeah,
they got something. They got something on him.
Yeah.
And on a hot seat too. Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah.
If he somehow back with the Florida Gators next year, it's by the grace of God. There's no way he's coming back.
No way.
Not with that
Yeah,
schedule.
I challenge every Ohio State fan to go look at Florida's schedule. Just go look at it. Go look at your schedule and look at Florida Gator schedule. That was almost unfair. That might be the toughest college football schedule I've ever saw a team have to play.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think that's the toughest college football schedule I've ever seen, is that Florida schedule. And Hummus, fair point. I forgot about that y'all did have Washington scheduled, and then y'all had to redo that one because of Washington moving. Fair play on that one.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. So yeah, listen, here's my quick take on this. I think that if we're talking who wins the Big Ten, to me, it's two teams. It's either Ohio State or it's Oregon. And it should be Ohio State.
Yeah.
Jance, you said it best. Listen, we've had questions about what's the quarterback situation going to be at Ohio State. We just watched Michigan win a national championship off of a solid defense and a quarterback that just simply didn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he made plays when they needed to be made, but it's not like they had a Bryce Young out there or a Deshaun Watson out there or a Caleb Williams out there who at times was like, hey, let's put the team on my back and let's win this game. Right? Michigan was just an incredibly balanced team that at every level was like, no, we are just going to play good quality football for 60 minutes. And what are you going to do to stop us? Fair enough. They brought home a national championship. Good on them. So for Ohio State, I understand that there's questions at the quarterback position. You got an incredible running back room. You got a lot of talent on the offensive line. You have a defensive coordinator who's reworking that defense, and you got a ton of talent on that defense. You have a very favorable schedule, And I understand, saying you have Oregon on the road and Penn State on the road. I'll grant you, Penn State's got some crazy nice environments, right? Like the whiteout stuff, let's be honest. Like those are always awesome. So grant you those. And Autzen, that can be a tough place to play. You're more talented than everybody, right? Now, this is an extreme example because Ryan Day at least wins games. But there was another team that was nationally ranked in the talent composite as a top 4, who they were more talented than everybody, but they didn't win. And that was Texas A&M. Now, like I said, I'm not comparing Jimbo to Ryan Day because Ryan Day actually wins games.
Yeah.
Right? Ryan Day wins football games. But at the end of the day, you have a more talented team than everybody on your schedule. Honestly, at every position except maybe quarterback, and then Michigan's got those defensive linemen, those interior monsters, right? Like fair play, that's another one. But outside of that, when you look at rooms, who's got a better secondary? Just top to bottom in terms of talent. Who's got a better running back room in the Big Ten? Who's got a better wide receiving core in the Big Ten? Ohio State should win this, but it comes back to this. Ryan Day, are you going to be able to win the big game? Right? I think Ryan Day's a solid coach. But at the same time, I can't put him in the elite of the elite category right now. I just can't in good conscience. I'd put him in good. I'd put him in well above average, right? Like if we're having S tier, A tier, B tier, I think I could put him in A tier, right? Like I could put him there, but he couldn't go in S tier to me. And Hummus even says nobody has a better overall team than Ohio State. That's why it's an Addy or bust for Day. I will even be a little bit kinder than you, Hummus. To me, you just have to win a few playoff games because winning a national championship is very difficult. And it's not always that the most talented team wins it. But you have got to at least beat Michigan. And I'll tell you why I'm so hard on this, gentlemen, and then we'll go to the SEC. Ohio State lost to Michigan last year when Michigan was in the middle of a scandal and Harbaugh wasn't on the sideline.
Yeah.
You lost to them without their coach being there. And yes, I know that there's something to say. People have said, hey, that fired up that Michigan team. It gave them something to play for. It also gave them a damn distraction. Right? Let's call it what it is. And listen, impressive to Michigan.
It gave them something to play for. The playoffs were on the line.
Well, I agree with you, Jance. I'm just giving you the argument that I hear all the time from people that
No,
it gave Michigan something to play for.
And I hate that argument so much, man. I hate when people say that. Bro, the playoffs are on the line. If you can't show up when the playoffs are on the line, then what are you on the field for? Your season's on the line. Well, I mean, extra motivation. That should be the motivation you need right there. And you lost. You got you lost. Matter of fact, again, it was a close game, right? Your quarterback decided to make some bad passes. Marvin Harrison had to become a one-man band show. You couldn't stop. Michigan's offensive line was pushing you around the football field in the second half, despite losing their best offensive lineman. You couldn't get the job done. And again, a lot of it was because of poor mismanagement based off of Ryan Day. He can't manage a game to save his life. And honestly, if he fails to do the same this year, it's time for you to go. Because guess what, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Thibodeau for the New York Knicks, I ain't blaming injuries. This dude's management of a game in a basketball game is disgusting. He did it with the Chicago Bulls, and he's did it with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he's doing it now. Sean McDermott. Anyone who watches any of my Bills videos know my biggest criticism about that asshole is his mismanagement. We've had championship rosters, number one caliber defenses, number one offenses, second best quarterback in the league, can't even get past Kansas City. Why? Because of poor mismanagement. 13 freaking seconds. This is the same deal with this guy in Ryan Day. He can't manage a game, can't manage a roster, can build one, can recruit. I mean, look at them right now. They're number one right now in recruiting. They're number one right now when it comes to their recruiting class. But guess what? It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter if you can't get it done on the football field enhanced because of your ability to not manage a football game properly. It is your biggest criticism, and it is why Brian Hartline is breathing right on your neck. Breathing right on your neck. No diddy. Breathing right on your neck. And he is going to make sure that he will be the head coach next year if you can't get that job done. So, yeah, he's under immense amount of pressure. And the fact that some of these Ohio State fans or Michigan fans want to give the excuse, Michigan had a lot of fire, so that's why they beat us. Bro, they lost their best offensive tackle to a scary leg injury. You got the head coach was gone. They're going under a scandal to a point where a lot of their games could have been gone. Like, and you can't get the job done. And I remember because they made that trailer and they made that video talking about, oh, we're going to beat Michigan this year. All that hype trailer, that hype video that they made got them nothing. It got them nothing. Got them nothing at all. Marvin Harrison Jr. had that little classic moment where he's looking at the sidelines, hyping himself up. Yeah, and all of a sudden, what do you watch at the end of the game? Him looking back at the football field because that was his last game. That was going to be the last game he played. So I'm tired of it, man. There's no excuses for this team. Ohio State has probably been the most overhyped team in the last 3 to 4 years. All classic championship rosters, first round picks, and it's got them nothing.
Well, you look at CJ Stroud going to the NFL and absolutely killing it. That guy's an incredible quarterback.
Yes.
And he loves Bryce, right? That's why I got so much love for CJ. Go ahead, Coach.
I would like to ask the Ohio State fans who are much more inclined with their own university than I am. Who do they think Ryan Day should be on the hot seat? Do they think if he does not win a natty this year, damn who he lose to during the season? If Ohio State does not win the national championship, should they look elsewhere at this point? I'd love to ask these guys that. I would love to see how they feel about it.
Hummus said he should. Hummus is an Ohio State fan. He said it's natty or bust. And I even said, if you get to the national championship game, it's a classic national championship, and you lose, I will be the first to be like, hey, great job, Ohio State. Great job, Ryan Day. That's an all-time classic game. College football just got treated. But if you fail to make the playoffs, get his ass out of there.
Yeah.
I lost my headphones doing that. Listen, you put your back into it.
Well, what's interesting too is with what Jay's saying, and I was looking at this. I saw this today, and it was posted on Twitter, right? And I think it was like Kickoff with Kenneth posted this. If you guys saw this, they had they had like this list: college football royalty, college football nobility. If you guys saw that on Twitter, it was actually really interesting. But you look at NFL draftees with Ohio State, right?
They have the most first round picks.
489. Yeah. First rounders, 91. The closest that comes to that is USC with 86.
And then Bama
right?
with 81.
82. They had 82. And then you look at though, but what's interesting with this, and this is where you jump up and you look at title claims, right? 489 NFL draftees, 91 first rounders. Then you look at title claims. They have selections, right? The selections, part, but title claims, they only have 8 title claims. You look at like these other teams in there, Michigan with 12, Notre Dame with 11. Granted, Notre Dame, they have a lot of, their history is deep, right? Bama obviously 18, right? USC 11. So you look at them, even with a win percentage, right? With Ohio State on the field win percentage, 7.737, right? The only one higher, I think, based on what I'm looking at, is Bama at 0.744. But then you go down that line and undefeated seasons, they only have 9, right? Like Oklahoma has 10. Nebraska has 10. Michigan has 18. But yet they have all this talent. So what is it, right, necessarily about Ohio State that they produce this massive amount of talent, but they can't convert it to the teams don't like, do they not synchronize? Do they not come together? Right. What is it about? Are the coaches not getting the things in place or utilizing talent correctly? You have to ask yourself over and over again, right? Because they do have a history. They have some great coaches, but what is going on, like from Ohio State standpoint, that continuously seems to be this issue? Because that's what history tells you. The numbers tell you a lot right there. And so is it a repeat of what we've seen then with Ohio State, once again, having all this talent, and then can they convert it right into actually being productive? So,
yeah, going to be interesting. Now, before we transition, I did want to hit this comment because I found it interesting. Sven, a Mississippi State fan, thank you for being in here, Sven, said there are only 4 elite coaches in all NCAA: Kirby, Lanning, Day, and Whittingham from Utah. I put DeBoer right under them. There's no way. Saban lost it. Or Saban retired, Dabo lost it. Here's where I'm going to push back on, Sven. You have 2 coaches in there that have played Kalen DeBoer 4 times and haven't beat him. So I don't know how you would put Lanning above Kalen DeBoer when he's 0-3 against Kalen DeBoer. And as much as I love Kyle Whittingham, he's 0-1 against Kalen DeBoer. Right? So Kirby, I get. You're not going to hear a peep from me on Kirby. Right? Like, you're not going to hear a peep from me. I think that's the best coach right now in college football. I don't know how you would rank any coach above him in college football right now. Right? Like, you might think, oh, well, I think my guy might be better. If we're being as objective as possible, I think Kirby has to go at the top of the list right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on an incredible run. 1 regular season loss over the past few seasons, coming to his boogeyman, Nick Saban. So Kirby, not a peep from me, but I don't know. And I love Kyle Whittingham, Sven. I have talked, everybody on this panel has heard me rant and rave about Kyle Whittingham. Yeah. I love that guy. Had 2 first-round top-notch guys. Yeah, it's because he developed them. When we're talking about Penix, he developed Michael Penix. And Rome Odunze, fair enough, right? Like, Rome Odunze was up. But he still is beaten. Yeah, he's still beaten the guys. So while I hear you, I cannot in good faith agree. And I don't know what would the argumentation be for putting Lanning over DeBoer when he hasn't beat him. Like, what would the logic for that be? Which, listen, you might have an argument. You very well might hit me with an argument and me be like, okay, that's fair enough. But I don't know what the argument would be to put Lanning over Kalen DeBoer when he's 0-3 against him.
Ain't no argument. You just said it right there. He's 0-3 against him.
Yeah, I don't know what the argument would be, but
yeah, it was weird.
I mean, we've gone an hour and 30 minutes on the Big Ten, right? And rivalries. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. So he gets better talent and then doesn't win with it. That almost hurts your argument, in my opinion, Sven.
Yeah.
That hurts your argument. That wouldn't help your argument. In my opinion, to quote Coach Sean, in my humble opinion, saying that Dan Lanning recruits better talent, and that's 80%, so he gets better players. But your argument for hold on, now I'm confused. Your argument for why you can't put DeBoer over Lanning is because he had 2 first-round guys, but your argument for why you put Lanning over DeBoer is because he gets better talent. Therefore, being like, oh well, he's going to have more first-round projections. That's a self-defeating argument.
I think he's still learning football, Ty.
No, he's a good dude. He's a good dude. But I just don't understand that argument.
Hold on. DeBoer actually has more first round picks than Lanning. He's got 3. How many does Lanning have?
I don't even.
1. And that was Bo Nix. And we all know why Bo Nix won the first round, because the Broncos were desperate for a quarterback. Because all their options were gone.
Yeah, listen.
He's 3-0 against them. He's got more first round picks than him. He's developed better players, and he has a better draft record in the last 2 years than him. I didn't see Dan Lanning in the top. I didn't see Dan Lanning in the top 5 in draft picks. I saw DeBoer's name typed with Nick Saban. I saw DeBoer's name typed second. Where was Dan Lanning at? At the bottom of the barrel.
Sven's a great dude. He knows his Mississippi State football. He has talked about it a lot in here, but to me, that's a self-defeating argument, Sven, to say, oh, one's a better recruiter, but I can't put DeBoer over him because he has more NFL talent. Like, if you're saying talent is 80% of football, then wouldn't that mean that you'd put DeBoer over Lanning if he had more talent and utilized it better? I don't know. That's just the way I look at it. But gentlemen, SEC breakdown. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about is who can make a run at the SEC championship, right? You've had a lot of teams mentioned. You've had Georgia. You've had Ole Miss. You've had Texas. People are asking, right? The Oklahoma fans are asking, can OU make a run at the SEC championship? The Bama fans are wondering, can Bama make a run at the SEC championship? The LSU fans are wondering, can they make a run at the SEC championship? And the Mizzou fans are wondering, can they? So I'm going to start this off, and then I'm going to kick it around. I'm going to start with Georgia. Georgia's going to be tough. Listen, I know that there are questions about Georgia's roster. People want to know, like, hey, is this a championship roster? They're still very talented. They're still very, very talented across the board. They're well coached. We know that. They lost some assistant coaches, right? You look at Syracuse, Fran Brown up there doing great things. I don't know. I haven't seen an LSU fan say it, Mike, but you know, it's also one of those things where I'm sure there are some people that do think they can win and I'm here to break that to them harshly, because no, I don't think that they can win the SEC this year. They have a lot of questions, right? Georgia, I think if you're saying, hey, who's the safest bet? I'd take Georgia if we're after the safest bet. If you're wondering about Ole Miss, gentlemen, I got to see Lane Kiffin win the big game before I just give him saying, hey, you're going to win the SEC. I need to see him win the big game first. What's his biggest win? 2019 A&M? Seriously. And I'm not saying that he hasn't been great for Ole Miss. I concede that. He's been fantastic for Ole Miss. But I can't sit here in good conscience and say, oh, he's going to beat all these teams when his biggest win is 2019 A&M.
Honestly, I think Tulane would be his biggest win. Tulane actually has the best record that he's actually beaten.
Tulane's a darn good team too.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, they were good.
Yeah. We're talking about, can OU win? I think OU is a year away from competing. I do think OU is going to shock some people in the SEC, though. I think that even Vegas right now is looking at OU and saying, like, oh, y'all are going to have a rough first year. I'm not saying they're going to win the SEC, but I think that they're going to shock some people. They did great work in the transfer portal. Dominic Williams was a huge win for them. Now you get to put him next to DeJoun Terry, next to a Jaden Jackson, gentleman, who's a true freshman from IMG. They also got David Stone, 5-star defensive lineman, and everybody expects him to be good. But Jaden Jackson, remember that name, guys. I think he's going to be someone we talk about in November, in December, being like, hey, this cat right here can play some ball. Biggest question for Oklahoma is offensive line. But every time I say that, then I have to fall
got
back
beaten.
on. You have
Yeah.
beaten Bo. So,
Yeah, no matter what he got.
I can have a question on it, but you have an answer for me. So fair play. I can't in good faith question Bill Beatonbow. Look at his history. Speaks for itself. So I think OU is going to shock people. I don't have them winning the SEC, but I do have them shocking people. I think they're going to be much better than expected. Texas is interesting, gentlemen, because this is my biggest thing with Texas. Is Quinn Ewers going to become the quarterback we know he can and should be? When I say that, are you going to be able to beat teams deep? If you can do that, you can beat a Georgia. But I don't think that the way to beat Georgia is saying, hey, we're going to do a bunch of short passes to try and stretch you out. Texas beat Bama off of great running back play in that fourth quarter, but Quinn also hit really beautiful deep shots that game. I've said it before. It kills me to say this. That moonshot pass against Bama is one of the most beautiful throws I've seen in a while. And it kills me to think back to it, but that was a beautiful throw. How are you going to replace the interior of your defensive front? And then the bigger question than that, what are you going to do in your secondary? Terrence Brooks is gone. And I love Malik Muhammad. I think that Makuba is a huge win, but you have some issues there. Sven says Milrow will not win you a championship. I don't know that everybody knows that. He was in overtime with the team that won the national championship with a center that couldn't snap him the ball. So I don't know that that's a take that everybody knows, because they took the national champions to overtime, like I said, with the center that couldn't get him the ball, which is one of the fundamental truths in football. I say hike. You give me ball.
Multiple occasions, we were 4th down, 4th and 2, and 4th and 5. Couldn't get Michigan off the field during their final drive. Couldn't get them off the field. If we just would have got them out on the 4th down, the game's over. We would have won the game, and we'd be playing Washington for a natty. So another scenario that could happen.
No, sure. Listen, I don't mean to take anything away from Michigan. Your defense was fantastic. Your offense came alive in that fourth quarter and played the ball game they had to play. Respect. That's how you win football games, right? Respect to you. But saying that he can't win a national championship when he took the national champions to overtime, that's where I don't fully agree with you, Sven. So, and then LSU, Sven, I do agree with you. Their defense was terrible. I don't expect it to be worlds better this year, and they lost Jalen Daniels. We can talk about the wide receivers they lost. It's LSU. They're going to have good wide receivers. Let's be honest here. Jake, let's pass it to you, because I think there are a few teams that can make a run. And then speaking about Bama, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have an incredible offensive staff. A few questions on defense. New secondary. A lot of new names in that secondary. I think that the front seven is going to be a real strength. You have a lot of returning in the front seven. More guys are healthy. More guys are returning. It's the secondary for Bama that if you're asking, what's my question for Bama? How's that secondary going to turn out? Talented, yes, but it's all new. Jake, go to you.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, right? Because I have this very interesting take on Bama just because of how much I know of KD, right? Just from being from Washington, right? Really studying, watching Kalen DeBoer, seeing what he did at Washington in 2 years after Washington was horrendous, right? Right before he came. Very impressive. So it's hard for me to say, but if we look at the numbers and we look at like who's coming back, obviously everyone wants to sit there and say Georgia does look good. They are going to be the team that everyone highlights if they play them on their schedule. I think we look at productivity wise from offense. You look at Missouri and Texas. Missouri returns 78.90%, basically 79% productivity on offense, and Texas returns 74% basically productivity on offense. But you don't want to rule out Oklahoma, because I do think number one, Oklahoma defensively returns the most productivity out of every SEC team. All right, defensively. And that is a key to be said in the SEC. You got to have that defense, right? You have to have that defense. That's where everyone questions Alabama right now. I don't think people are necessarily questioning Alabama from an offensive standpoint. The running back room is argued. Everyone has their different takes. I think it's the best running back room in the nation. I know a lot of people are like, well, wait a minute. These guys haven't necessarily been, when we've seen them on the field compared to other teams who have all these guys. Just wait. Just wait. Like you saw what KD did, and Coach Sean, you did the awesome video on this, right? Coach Sean, everybody. I'll tell you what, at JMHO Sports Talk, make sure you follow the channel, check it out, thumbs up. But I'll tell you right now, like he does a really good breakdown in this running back room to understand what you have depth-wise. Kalen DeBoer did not have that at Washington, okay? He did not have depth at Washington at running back. It was not there. He had Dylan Johnson, who was like 75%. And still ran for over, I think, 1,200 yards and basically carried the running game on his back. He couldn't. That's why they couldn't get that running game even established. If they get that established, imagine what that offense does. Okay, you're like, well, they get established. The offense still look like shit in these games. Okay, whatever. Let's take that out. Now you put in Jalen Milroe because you just added another dynamic weapon to an offense that already plays you one-on-one like a basketball game. All right. Like you can't, it's impossible to stop. It really is. When you have that many weapons in the depth, and they have the depth. Nick Saban built a wide receiver room that was made to play any position out there. I don't think people realize like what he did with his recruiting. He was already going and transitioning into a way to have versatility everywhere. And so I feel good, but a lot of question marks on defense, right? From the Alabama standpoint, we jumped down the line. Missouri, with what they return offensively, that's where I think Missouri is a very interesting team to watch. I think a lot of people have brought it up. Their coach, Drinkowitz, right? He does an amazing job. He does a really good job from a quarterback standpoint with the wide receivers that they have. They're going to look good. They're going to be challenging. I think the next aspect of that, whereas in LSU, a lot of people are questioning LSU. LSU will be a huge question mark because a lot of their productivity comes from Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and who's the other wide receiver that got drafted. That's where their offensive production comes from, right? They will have a really good offensive line, so that's going to help quarterback-wise. But I think defensively, okay, what do they have? They return a decent production on defense, but at the same time, like, do they have the guys up front depth-wise? Because it sounds like based on their depth chart, they're going to have to play some true freshmen. And that's going to be interesting from an adjustment standpoint from them. Because if you're not getting pressure on a quarterback defensively, I don't know what – it's going to be really hard on the rest of your defense to maintain discipline and coverage and even your blitzes, right? Because there's going to be confusion. So that's where I think LSU maybe falls off. I think the next part is – where everyone's going to question on this one is Ole Miss. If Kiffin can take the talent he just got and he can somehow mesh it together and they come together, then Ole Miss will be dangerous. They will be very, very dangerous because they do defensively. They have the guys, they have the people, they have the personnel, they have some depth. Running back room looks good. Jackson Dart comes back. Right. And he had decent production from last year. He comes back ready and familiar with what he's going to see. Ole Miss is that team that we sit there and go, okay, what are they going to do? Can Kiffin cross the threshold of these wins and winning some of these big games? Right. And then we jump to Texas and their depth chart. You know what I mean? In their depth chart, Texas built, they went in this offseason with portal ideas, and they built what they wanted depth chart wise. If Ewers puts it together, they look good. Now they are the question mark on defense. They lost a lot of productivity on their defensive line. Okay, again, the game's won in the trenches, people. The game is won in the trenches. Okay, so what happens from Texas? Maybe they have a high-powered offense, but can their defense match up? It doesn't feel necessarily good from the aspect that the guy you just lost twice in a row, 2 years in a row with KD is now in the SEC coaching at a powerhouse in Alabama. That's like that doesn't feel good. Okay. Because Texas is like, oh shit, they'd have even more talent and we got to try and stop them. Damn. Luckily, I don't think they see them on the schedule. Right. So I think if I jump down to Alabama, I think obviously Georgia's going to be sitting there, and they're the ones. Like, is Georgia going to win this conference? Are they the ones that everyone's going to lock onto? Yes. But I think your sleeper teams, if I put it down and I really look, I think my sleeper team's Oklahoma. Okay. Yeah, you lose Dylan Gabriel, but who they bringing in, Ty, or anybody?
Jackson Arnold,
Yes,
unbelievable
Jackson Arnold.
talent, very
He is.
physical, got a cannon for an arm, very athletic.
Yep.
Denton Geyer was clocked at above 20 miles per hour.
Yep.
And when I say that, I know some people who might not be familiar with Jackson Arnold are thinking he's some skinny, wiry dude. No, he will run you straight over if he needs to on his way. Fantastic wide receiver room. 2 wide receivers above 6'4".
Yep.
And both of them can fly. Deion Burks can fly. Andrell Anthony was having a great year last year. Jaleel Farouk is an absolute chess piece. Jaquez Petaway is an absolute monster with the ball in his hand. Solid running back room. And a lot of returning on defense, right? So, no, I actually don't disagree with your OU being your sleeper. Coach Sean, thoughts?
For me, man, it really comes down to about 3 or 4 teams. And I apologize if my internet is tripping. I don't know what's going on. But
are you good?
For me, it comes down to Georgia. It comes down to Texas. It comes down to Missouri. And it comes down to Bama. I know Ole Miss is prepping themselves for a great season. I get it. I know LSU. I get it. Oklahoma. I think all these teams are going to have great seasons. But I think that Georgia-Texas game is going to be huge, one of the biggest games of the season. I think that game will really, really, really give you the inside track of who the best in the league is. I think Georgia, with the returning people that they have, will always be a factor in this conference, right? I think Texas is built to win in this league right now. They have recruited well. Sark's time at Bama has really, really helped him understand this league. I think Missouri is one of the most dangerous teams in the conference. Missouri could really, really cause some people some headaches. Shout out to Gil Cruz. What's up, Gil? Much love to you. And I think Bama. The young man was talking about Jalen Milroe. We won't win with him. I'll say this to you. Alabama gave up 43 sacks last year, which was a record for our offensive line.
129th in the nation.
129th in the nation, right? Jalen Milroe was the youngest starter outside of the guy from Auburn, I believe. Whatever. It was one more quarterback who was younger than Jalen Milroe as far as starts. Jalen Milroe was a very young starter last year, and he missed one game. We still made it to the semifinals, right? We still made it to the college football playoff, man. With that, so think about a seasoned quarterback with a seasoned offensive guy, a competent offensive scheme that makes sense this year, right? An offense that will actually exploit his talent, not make him into Peyton Manning, right? Alabama, I kind of like flying under the radar. I really enjoy that. I think these guys are going to have a huge year. I think Alabama is primed to do some things that people don't understand, and I really like that, me personally. I don't have no faith in LSU. I don't have no faith in Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's going to have a good season. I think they're going to come in and do just what Ty said and shock some teams. I don't know how many games they're going to win in this league. Ole Miss, I think Lane is going to get too cute and lose a game or two that he shouldn't, right? Down the stretch. So for me, it's just those teams. Georgia is primed to be right there. Texas is built to be right there. I think they have some deficiencies, but I think Texas has one of the best coaching staffs in the country. I think they'll get better as the season go along. I think Missouri, I think Eli Drinkwitz is an underrated offensive coach. This guy can give you headaches no matter what defense you play. And I think Bama. I think injuries will come into play this year with so many high-priced games, so many high-level games, and the 12-team college football playoff. So it's really a toss-up, man. But if I had to bet my money, I can't go wrong with UGA, Texas, Missouri, and Bama as the 4 teams that I really believe will make the college football playoff from the SEC.
Jance.
I think it's really 3 teams. The more and more I'm looking at this SEC's schedule, the more I'm looking at this roster, I think it's 3 teams that I think that are, at least right now, are primed to make the playoffs. I think that's Bama. I think that's Texas. And I'm gonna shock some people here. I'm gonna go with Oklahoma. I said this 2-3 years ago. Ty can attest. I've been said when Texas and Oklahoma, when they get here, they're gonna be fine. They'll be fine. Now Oklahoma have the tougher schedule. They do. They have the tougher schedule. But I think what I saw from them last year was they really built their team to an SEC-like football team. They built their trenches both on the offensive line and the defensive line to look like an SEC team. Now they did have their losses. They lost to Kansas, right? They lost to Oklahoma State. They lost games, close games, but they lost those games where where obviously if they were here last year, I don't think they would have been. Obviously those would have been disappointing losses. But I like their offense. Again, Bedenbaugh is the best offensive line coach in the country. This is 2 years in a row now where their offensive line has been dismantled. They brought in a crap ton of transfers, and all of a sudden they're producing draft picks. He's done it 2 years in a row. So until something bad happens, I'm still going to be confident this is going to be a top offensive line. I don't think anybody's going to disagree that this is not going to be one of the top defensive lines in the country, because I think it will be. You look at that defensive roster in the depth chart. I like what they have there. Bringing back Stenson was huge. Bringing back Billy Bowman, Billy Bowman was huge. I like Jackson Arnold. I think has a lot of potential with this game. The running attack last year was phenomenal. You brought in 2 speedster receivers, including the one from Purdue, who can end up being that next Hollywood Brown-like receiver on your team. I like it. And then I like Brandon Venables and the coaching staff still kind of being there, and being stable. I like Brandon Venables. I think if anything, if he would have coached in the SEC last year, I think he could have been. I think he could have done a lot better, because I think the Big 12, from a stylistic standpoint, it is a little bit different. Even though nowadays it's trending a little closer to what the SEC is, because now all of a sudden, like the Ali Gorans of the world, you saw last year with Texas when they had to rely a lot more on their running attack, and then Oklahoma did the exact same thing. You kind of, you're starting to see that it started to trend in the opposite direction. But then I look at Texas. Man. I'm like, you know what? If Quinn Ewers struggles, what's stopping Steve Sarkisian from saying, you know what, I have a talented backup quarterback in Arch Manning, who is, from a talent standpoint, is way superior than Quinn. He is trending upwards in camp. He had a phenomenal spring game. Yes, it was the second team, but still, he's learning the playbook. He's getting a better grasp of the playbook and sort of concepts, and he's starting to get these Texas receivers out again with his dad, right, in the Manning camp. But he's getting those receivers out there and he's working with them. He's building continuity from all of them. And remember, this is not a A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy sort of situation, or even a Jordan Whittington situation where Quinn knows Jordan. He knows Jordan Whittington from what he knows everything about him, right? He knows where he knows what movies he likes to watch. He knows what video games they like to play. Fortnite. They know he knows it all. You got Isaiah Bond. They brought in a couple other transfers in as well. The Silas Bolden from Oregon State, right? Different style receivers compared to what even a little bit different from Worthy. Worthy was a pure speedster receiver who was great when it came to the short end game and more screens. A.D. Mitchell was a jump ball receiver who was also great when it came to those inside slants and comebacks. He was phenomenal at that. These are different receivers in terms of their strength and weaknesses present. And so this is going to be new, not just for Quinn Ewers. This is going to be new for every quarterback that's going to be on their roster. Remember, Texas, at least from their experience standpoint, they have the most experienced quarterback room in the country. Their offensive line, top 5 offensive line in the country. Everyone kind of knows that. You have a top 5 pick, maybe the number 1 overall pick still in Kelvin Bates Jr. DJ Campbell, I think, is going to have a great year this year. That offensive line is legit. Defensively, they did lose Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat, but everything else is there. I mean, they didn't really lose that much in the defensive line from a depth standpoint. Vernon Broughton Jr., who I've heard from a lot of people, that dude is next, right? I'm a big fan. I mean, he is next potentially, so we'll see. But that is big holes to fill when you're missing 2 top 50 overall prospects, and one of them ended up being a first-round pick. Their linebacking situation, this is a bigger concern that I think than their defensive line, because you lose Jalen Ford, who is the signal caller. Who's going to be your signal caller? Is it going to be a Hill, who was more? He was really more of a he was more of a Perkins. He played more of a Perkins role where he was simply just playing off the edge. He was the extra blitzer, that extra pass rusher that kind of came in their field, had less responsibilities. Who's going to play as a Mike? Are you going to have Anthony Hill there, or are you going to have someone else kind of fill that role in there? And then, like Ty said a little bit earlier, their secondary room, are you really going to rely on, is Malik Muhammad, is he ready to take that next step of being that number 1 guy? because right opposite of him, who do you have right next to him? Terrence Brooks. I mean, he's gone. Like, who do you have? So their safety, I like their safety unit. I think that's solid. I think bringing in Andre Mbuke is good. But I like Texas. I think Texas, looking at their depth standpoint, and I think the most important factor, they have Steve Sarkisian, who is one of, if not the best play caller and designer in college football. And that is prime for success, knowing the amount of 5-star talent, especially coming in. Like, people forget, they brought in a top 5 class this year. And look how many young cats played from their previous class last year that made a big contributing factor. We have to definitely take that into consideration as well if we're going to do the same thing with the other teams, right? So I look at Texas, I look at Bama, I look at what Oklahoma's done, and then I look at everybody else. Missouri has question marks. Like, who, their running back, their offensive line. They lost big key pieces on the defensive line, including losing their top edge rusher and Darius Robinson. Their secondary was kind of subpar last year. You just lost a top 40 cornerback to the Detroit Lions. Their secondary was subpar last year. So I don't know if I'm not ready to sip on the drink with Kool-Aid. What has he proven? Can he do this continuously? Has he shown? What did he do from a recruiting standpoint this year? What did he bring in from a transfer portal haul? It was one of those years where I thought, okay, you know what? Maybe he can take over. He didn't do that. Then you have to take a look at LSU. You brought in Bo Davis. You brought in Coy Raymond. Your defensive line still stinks when it comes from a depth standpoint. Your secondary still stinks from a depth standpoint. Your offensive line, top tier. Your rushing attack, questionable. Your quarterback, Nussmeier, I think he has some promise, had a great game against Wisconsin, but still has some questions. And then receiver, like Ty said, it's going to be good. So LSU has major question marks. Ole Miss, can Lane Kiffin win the big game? Because on paper, that roster, we want to talk about bought. Oh, yeah, they bought that roster. Chris Paul Jr., Princely, but their secondary stinks. You have to rely on a backup in Trey Amos, who I love Trey Amos, but you have to rely on him, and he was struggling throughout their spring camp. What were they doing during spring camp when they were just doing nothing but having a carnival festival over there? So I don't know what they're doing, but you got Trey Amos and Brandon Turnage, former Bama players, by the way, and Brandon Turnage, who was a nickelback, but played as an outside corner for Tennessee, and he stuck up the joint. So what are you going to do from a linebacking standpoint? What are you going to do from a secondary standpoint? Defensive line-wise, yes, I'll give you that. That should be the main strength of your team with Walter Nolan and Princely, two guys who can end up being top 50 draft picks. Your offensive line is going to be good, no doubt about it. You brought in two Washington guys, and Nate Klapko and Julius Bulau, good guys that have the experience. But you lose your top running back in Quinshawn Jenkins. Your quarterback is solid. It's got the potential. Hasn't proven it against the elite caliber teams, not to mention the fact that when it comes to Lane Kiffin as a play caller and play designer, he has stunk up the joint against great defense, against great coordinators. So I look at Texas and Oklahoma. I feel more confident about those teams, and I could say Alabama. It's the obvious choice for me, but I want to keep it new. But every other school, that everyone's trying to hype up, the LSUs, the Ole Misses, the Missouris of the world, I don't know about them. I think they have major question marks that I think needs to be answered.
Brensky, before I pass it to you, we got some comments. I think it was Chicken asked about the last time one of y'all wanted our house. I'll wait. Not Bama. That was 2002, man. Like, you know what I mean?
That was like
years ago.
Not even high school yet.
And let me say this. We got a college football player, someone who played the game of college football on the panel tonight. Jake, do you think it's fair to say what happened 21 plus 1 years ago is indicative of what will always happen, or no?
No.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, Chicken, I love you, but that right there isn't what I believe like a strong argument, right? Because if we're saying that, then my counter would be, well, look at what happened the last time Alabama played Oklahoma, where they ran them out of the building. And then it was after they took their foot off the gas that Oklahoma started coming back. Nick Saban looked at Tua, was screaming, said, go get him. Tua smiled, put on his helmet, and in 3 plays, Bama went down the field. And that, just because Bama did that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen next time, right? Like, what happened in the past isn't indicative of what will always happen. So I hear you. I think Oklahoma, like I said, will shock some people, but I don't think that the argument of, oh, well, when was the last time you wanted our house is the strongest argument because that was 2002. Now, we do have a great question. Coach Sean, I want to give this to you, but I do want to say, Kiltack, I'll call it now. Bama has the number 1 tight end and running back this year and a top 3 wide receiver. I certainly hope so. Thank you for the $10 donation. Ephraim saying the big upset in the SEC. I'm going to give you 2 that I don't think a lot of people may consider big, but I based off of some of the comments, I'll give you 2. Oklahoma will beat both Missouri and LSU this year. I have them beating both Missouri and LSU this year. But Dud Dundies has a question. And JB saying Kyle Flood's the best offensive line coach. I'd give it to Bill Bedenbaugh. I think he's a better offensive line coach. I think Kyle Flood is a fantastic offensive line coach. That's not to down him, but I absolutely would give it to Bill Bedenbaugh. I think he's the best offensive line coach in the nation. Anthony saying, would you consider Lane? No, I wouldn't consider them under the radar, Anthony, just because they have all that talent and they're being talked about as a top 3 team in the SEC. But Dud Dundies has a question. Coach Sean, I want to give this to you. Can those that say Texas is better than OU explain why? OU won last year and didn't lose nearly as much in the draft.
I think Texas has a better coaching staff. I think Oklahoma's schedule is much harder than Texas. I think Texas' schedule, as far as SEC in their first year, is very easy compared to what Oklahoma has to go through. I just think Texas is a better built team for the SEC, for the grind of the SEC. I don't think Oklahoma's there just yet. I don't have no faith in Oklahoma's quarterback. I would take Quinn Ewers, no matter how inconsistent, over the kid from Oklahoma. Just me. I watched Quinn do something on the road that hadn't been done at Bama in years. I would pick Texas to beat Oklahoma. Well, I won't say that. I'll pick Texas to do better than Oklahoma in the first year in the SEC. And if you want one real point wise outside of that, look at the 2 schedules. They did Texas a favor, didn't do Oklahoma any in the first year.
I can agree with that. Oklahoma has got a really rough schedule as compared to Texas. Texas certainly has an easier schedule. And if we're asking who's positioned better to win the SEC, schedule will certainly matter. Sooner Cowboys saying they came back. Like I said, Sooner Cowboys, they certainly did. Kyler was great. Bama just started running the football, and the second Oklahoma started scoring, there's a point in that game, we can go back and find it and watch it as a group. Nick Saban starts screaming, looks at Tua, and says, go get him. Tua just started smiling and laughing, put on his helmet, sprinted on the field. 3 plays later, they marched all the way down the field and scored. The second Bama started throwing the ball again, just quick slants were eating that Oklahoma defense alive. They couldn't stop Devontae Smith off of a quick timing slant. But like I said, that's the only reason I bring that up is like to counter Chicken, who I love you, Chicken, but I bring that to counter that argument of what happened the last time you played in any environment is indicative of what will happen anytime you play. Because I don't think that Oklahoma and Norman is going to be a walk in the park for Alabama. I think that's going to be a really tough game. I think it's going to be a very, very tough game for Alabama. And I think if Alabama overlooks them, Oklahoma can catch them. I think that Oklahoma is a really solid team, but wanted to dip to it wasn't them, it was OU. Oh, yeah, no, listen, I think all of us here on the panel agree. Oklahoma is going to shock people, but you have a really tough schedule. Brinsky, I pass it to you.
Man, thank you. Because all this Oklahoma talk, I just got so tired of it. Man, y'all haven't won a national championship since 2000. I was 9 years old. Like, come on, man. Like, let's stop acting like Oklahoma is like Oklahoma back in the day. Like this is the 50s. Y'all need to stop this, man. Y'all are underachievers. The last time I remember y'all playing in the national championship, you got destroyed by USC. And you talking about when was the last time an SEC school beat you at home? How often do they play y'all at home? It's about to be real soon. Just know it's about to be real soon. Y'all about to take a few L's on that field. So let's start with this Oklahoma talk. I don't even know why y'all even in discussion. Wipe your feet when you're coming into the SEC, please. All right, I'm done with you guys. All right. It was just ridiculous, man. But
I think that Lincoln is the underachiever, if I'm being completely fair, man. I think Lincoln was a big underachiever.
Man, Bob Stoops blown a whole bunch of games. No, I'm sorry. Y'all lost to Florida the last time y'all played in that championship game. Oops. scrubs. Man, stop it, man.
Where's Jason? We need Jason to get it.
I know, man.
Jason would have killed me by now. But I believe it's only Alabama, Texas, Georgia, and Ole Miss has just been the team I just been eyeing all year, man. I think it's their year on paper. But yes, I understand Lane Kiffin doesn't win the big games, but he has Georgia at home on November the 9th, same day as Tuskegee homecoming. Shout out to my HBCU.
Shout out.
But
shout out.
But that game right there, I believe they're going to upset Georgia. This is their time. This is their time. It's going to be in prime time. LSU is not going to be LSU of last year. Their schedule is very favorable. All the big games they're going to have at home. This is their time to make it to the SEC championship game. This is their time to make it to the college football playoff. I think this is the best chance they're going to have in a long, long time. They need to take advantage of it. I wish they kept Quishon Judkins. I wish they kept him. That would have enhanced that chance, but we got to see if these running backs going to step up. But man, I really see Ole Miss, especially them not playing Alabama this year. There's a big chance that they can make it. Georgia is Georgia. They got big games. Really, they playing all three of the guys that I just named on the road from Ole Miss to Alabama and Texas. That Texas game and Georgia game is going to be a very, very interesting game.
Yes.
I pray to God it's a night game. That is definitely prime time right there. I think that is nothing but a chess matchup. Kirby's defense against Sharp's offense. That's going to be a beautiful game. Alabama. It's just that secondary, man. It's just so many losses on that secondary. So many questions. I want us to win. I pray we win, but it's still up in the air for me with Alabama right now. I just have to see it. Yeah, we keep seeing all these guys coming in, but it's just so many losses on that secondary that scares me. I wish we could have kept Caleb Downs, but it took Jay on one live stream to just say, hey, man, if you with us, you with us. I don't even care if you walk out the door. Either you with Alabama or you ain't. And I promise you, that made me get over everybody that was walking out the door. And I was just like, yeah, man, if you with us, you with us at this point, because I don't even care anymore. Because if you want to play for Alabama, play for Alabama. But Texas, it all depends on Quinn's health. It all depends on Quinn's health. If Quinn can stay healthy, I know Arch is going to be good, but I don't know. This is his time this year. I think this is Quinn's team. Texas is very, very interesting. If safe choice, Georgia, sleeper, Ole Miss. Texas definitely has a favorable schedule. Alabama just still up in the air for me.
There we go. So we have two people on the panel who think that Oklahoma are teams to watch. We have got two people on the panel that thinks that they are going to shock people, but not going to be in contention for the SEC championship. And then we have Brinsky, who the Oklahoma fans are going to be very upset at. And listen, I love it. Oh, listen. Say your truth. You know what I mean? Say your truth. That's what we do this for. So, I think it's going to be an interesting year in the SEC, right? Going to be a lot of fun. But, gentlemen, we've been on here for 2 hours. It is about that time we hop off of here. Let's go around the table and let everybody know where they can find you at. Jake, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Right now, you guys can find me on Twitter, right? And that's all capital letters, but it's Coach_Jmayer. I don't know, Ty, if you take the comment off the screen real quick. Just kidding, it won't do it. Oh, there we go. You can see underneath my name. There we go. Yeah, so you can find me there. Twitter, come shoot me a follow. I'm starting to get back into this. It sounds like I might be creating my own channel here soon so I can get all these guys and start,
Please.
jumping up with everybody, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's panel. We're going to start doing some stuff on that side too. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited, super pumped up, and honestly, just super honored to be on here. And getting to meet new people, but being with my bros, Bresky, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah.
I've
Yes,
been waiting to hang out with you on here too. So a lot of fun. But yeah, shoot me a follow on Twitter, and just an honor to be here, guys. Appreciate you.
Coach Sean, before you go, Alan Berry at the beginning of this show donated and asked about Bama's defensive staff and if we can grade them. Thank you for the $2, Alan. Let's do that very quick. I think that whenever we look at this, Mike, let me know what cigars you smoke. I just this weekend was in Colorado and I had myself a Plasencia Almafuerte as we were staring at the mountains, and it was fantastic.
I saw the picture; it looked good.
You're
Probably
fancy.
it's my number one cigar right now. Granted, I'm not super well versed, but that Plasencia is absolutely incredible. Grading Alabama's defensive staff. Alan, I think that the secondary, while I love both Hitchler and I love Mo, I would give that less than what Alabama had with T. Rob and Saban. Let's be honest here. I love the hires. I think they're both great hires. You had T. Rob and Saban.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be 100% here. I don't think you're going to do better than that. So that's definitely a diminishment. I think that linebackers is interesting because Womack, being an inside linebacker coach, I think is going to do Alabama's defense a lot of good, especially with his 3-4 nickel, 4-2-5 nickel, however you want to really talk about it. That's going to be a very interesting one. I will give him the nod over Balla, but I love what Balla did. I like Balla a lot. That's a close one, right? That's a close one for me. When we look, you retain Roach, so I love that. You have Robinson at the edge. I think Robinson, and Jake can speak to this very quickly. That's his favorite hire on this defense. Jake, if you want to speak to Robinson real quick, and then I'll let the rest of the panel kind of give their thoughts on Bama's defensive staff grading it. But I do think I can't in good conscience say that Alabama has better coaches in the secondary. You lost T. Rob and Saban. I don't care who you hire.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a heck of a point. And yeah, real fast, like I think it's a great defensive coaching staff. I love it. I think obviously with Robinson and Womack, splitting up these linebackers, but Robinson taking the edge, Womack taking the middle linebackers or our linebacking group. Womack's good. He's amazing when it comes to coaching linebackers in general. You can see it in his production from when he was a D coordinator coaching linebackers previously, even when he was at Ole Miss as a GA and helping his dad's team become a number one defense in the nation, running this similar defense, right? So, but real quick on Robinson, the guy is a stud. All you got to do is look at what is going on with their overall linebacker group right now. Like, look at the guys that are so interested in wanting to come in. Look at the way he's recruiting. Look at like the way he's teaching these guys. Just watch the productivity of what they do in the depth and the rotation this next year from that, that wolf position, right? And you know what I love, man? I saw him in a picture, and I think it was way offsides cotton. They posted this, and he was in a Jordan t-shirt, Alabama Jordan t-shirt. It's about time, Alabama, but wearing, and it says, "Let's hunt." Hunt is one or like that, right? Hunt is one, but that's what he calls his wolf position. Let's hunt. He has the energy, but he also has that familiarity. And you look at his productivity from where he's at Florida, in general, like, and you look at his background from the SEC and what he's been able to do. The guy's young, he's hungry, he's really smart, and he really just gets these guys in a position to win. I think we're going to see that this next year in the defense with Robinson. So.
Facts. I agree with Jake. I agree with Ty too as well with the secondary. I do think the defensive line will have a better year this year in getting away from that gap scheme. The gap scheme is very, very boring, to be honest. I mean, it's a great scheme, don't get it wrong, but a lot of defensive linemen don't like playing in that. They don't get no glory in that gap scheme whatsoever. I think the defensive line will have an opportunity to create some pressure, to create a lot of havoc in this scheme. So I would definitely give that a better grade this year. Looking forward to the future. I think the inside linebackers will have a better year this year. I agree with Ty as well. Coach Baller was an awesome gap scheme coach, awesome linebacker coach in all schemes. I would go with Coach Womack with that as well. I really believe this defense is going to be better. We're young, just like Brinsky was talking about earlier. We're super duper young at places, man, like unmercifully young at places. But I think in the long run, once this vision coverage really gets implemented, like Jake talked about on our channel, I think the grade will be better. Now, I will say this on the flip side. It's a defense that's going to take some time, man. It's going to take some time to really get everybody on the same page, right? But what I think helps us is the offense is going to play well from jump. I believe that. I don't think the offense is going to take a step back by any stretch. But to give them a grade, I think the only position that I can overwhelmingly say is not as good as last year is just like Ty said, the secondary coaches with T-Rob and Saban. It's hard to beat that. It's definitely hard to beat that.
And Jansen Brisky, if you want to add anything into that.
Oh no, they said everything I wanted to say. They got it.
Beautiful. Well, Coach Sean, let them know where they can find you. Then Jansen Brinsky.
Before I do, shout out to my brother Gil Cruz, man. It's so good to see Gil in here, man. Gil, it's good to see you, brother. I love you. It's so good to see you, man. Seen a couple of my former teammates in here at Alabama A&M University. Boom, right here. A couple of my brothers in here, man. Thank you guys for tapping in, man. You guys can find me at just my humble opinion is at JMHO Sports Talk on YouTube and Twitter, at JMHO Sports Talk on YouTube and Twitter.
Jance
716 on Twitter. You guys want to interact, want to do some collaborations and stuff like that, just hit me up on my Twitter. I'll pretty much always respond for the most part. And then Jant Sports on YouTube is where you want to find me for more content, stuff like that. More rants, like you kind of saw a quick little 10-bit, what you saw today. I will be going on a rant on EA Sports with college football because I am very disappointed of the news that I'm hearing, especially because one of my I got a friend that actually went to Orlando and went to EA Sports and played the game. Didn't like it, so I'm gonna go on a rant about that based off of the details that he told me. So yeah, if you want to see more of that stuff, check out my channel, Jant Sports.
Brinsky.
Well, I'm Brent Sharp of the Sharpshooters Podcast. Well, we drop every Wednesday. Appreciate everybody supporting the pod. Still on the road to 500 subscribers. Well, actually 16 subscribers away. So make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. And everybody else, make sure you definitely subscribe to these guys' channel. Always shout out to my main man, Ty. Love that, brother. Coach Sean, Jay, and my main man, Jan. You already know, brother. Love you. Appreciate you. And definitely shout out to Tuskegee University. The only reason why I wanted to say that because Coach Sean, they destroyed us when we played them. And I'm still mad about that. On that
Tuskegee used to be our rival. Like we in two different conferences now, but Tuskegee is still, boy. We play them in anything, Ty, Jake, Jance, any sport is to the rafters, bro. And what's crazy, real quickly before we go, it's a lot of crossover between Tuskegee, a lot of coaches, a lot of people who work at A&M that worked at Tuskegee and vice versa. A lot of alumni of Tuskegee work at both universities. So it's I went on a recruiting trip. They recruited me to Tuskegee. I almost committed there, man, when I saw all the great personnel at Tuskegee. Trust me. I almost committed there.
Top tier.
I promise you I did.
I love it.
Shout out Tuskegee.
And
yeah,
go ahead.
Real quick, I don't know. Are we rolling this evening some more potentially?
If you guys up for it, man.
They're
up for it.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Coach.
Oh, I'm good. Go ahead.
Well, I was saying, man, hey, y'all want to maybe catch us here in a little bit? We might be on Coach Sean's channel talking some more football this evening. So make sure you tune in over there too, because I know we were we're doing a little double header, I think, tonight. So we're gonna have some
and maybe
fun.
tomorrow, because tomorrow in the AM. I don't know if y'all want to do that again.
Yeah.
Back over here. All right. Well,
I got to catch this Nuggets game. I got money on the line here, so I got to catch that. I'm down for the morning.
Okay, well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, you can catch us again tomorrow, 9 a.m. You can catch us this evening over at Coach SPH, Coach Sean's channel. And Janet, thank you so much for being here. I didn't get to call out a lot of people in here, and if I didn't get to call you out, if I didn't get to shout you out, I sincerely apologize.
Auntie Janet?
Yeah, Auntie Janet's in here.
Okay.
And we got Jill in here. We got Kimberly in here. Jimmy Lee going in here. Caitlin, thank you for being in here. Thomas, of course.
Party.
Ephraim. It was just a lot of people in here, right? Tough to catch everybody. And Auntie Janet, I saw you asking about fan funders. It's just because I'm just an opinion piece, and I don't feel like people should pay for just hearing my opinion in like a fan funder thing, right? Like I don't know. It's something I might think about, but since I'm just an opinion piece, I just feel like that should be free, right? Like this is college football for the people, by the people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the beauties is like, I don't know. I'll leave that up to y'all, but I think that's why I've never done it is because I've always looked at this is for the people, by the people. This is just for the love of college football. And so we'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. We'll be over at Coach Sean's channel here in a little bit. And until next time, let me introduce you to the 6th member of this panel, the Spinning Wheel of Doom.
Roll Tide.